Oh, I need to record. Hello, welcome to the stream. I don't know how many people are here, but welcome. We're going to be talking about Kebanzu Lore. We're going to be answering questions that were sent in. Maybe even some questions in the chat. And I'm here with Ben, T, Hayden, and then also Starry. But they're AFK at the moment, but they will be back soon.
Hello.
Hello.
Do we want to get going on some questions?
Maybe give it a minute. Make sure everyone's all caught up.
Oh yeah, fair point.
And then you said you were going to do some sketches and doodles of stuff while we were talking about it, right?
Yes, I am going to be doodling. Hello. Hello, welcome. Welcome to the stream. It is okay. We will be recording the stream, so I'll be uploading it to my my YouTube channel after we're done with it. So don't worry about missing anything. It is all good. Should I add some like background chill music to go on?
Probably.
Okay, I'm just gonna add some free to use music. Some chill music.
Ah, yes. Your desktop. So
Yes,
chill.
Very chill music. Okay. I don't know how loud this is. It's very loud in my ears, but how does that sound for the stream? Is it too loud? It's too loud for me. I'm turning it down to 4. Nice. We're just gonna wait for...
Alright.
Oh, are we getting started?
I think we should probably get started.
Alrighty.
A few minutes after now.
Yeah.
So we got a lot of questions after submitting to the Google Forms I posted up a little bit ago. We've gone through and answered some stuff, and we plan on doing a little bit more elaborating and like brainstorming while we're streaming. But we'll go ahead and get into the first questions here. The first sort of category of questions that I marked off is about like Keb anatomy and shapeshifting. The first ones we've got here were submitted by Sahara Fang. The first question is, why plant forms?
Simple answer for this question is plants cool. And the long answer for this question is I originally chose plants because I wanted Kebanzus to have a really easy way to hide in plain sight that didn't involve them having to socialize with other races if they needed to. So just to be invisible pretty much, and turning into plants was something that I thought would be pretty useful because most people don't pay any attention to plants. Like, they'll see a plant along the side of the road and just be like, oh, it's just a plant, like, no big deal. And the only people that are going to get really weirded out by it would be like, I don't know, plant biologists. So I figured that like having plant forms to be sneaky would be good. And then I think, Hayden, did we also talk about like a long time ago how they might have, what's the word? There's a spell to where it like pushes people away from looking at something. I think it's in D&D.
Yeah, in D&D 5th edition at least, there's a spell called Antipathy, and basically it makes it so that if you see an item or like whatever's affected by the spell, you basically have to resist the effect of the magic to look at it, otherwise you're forced to look away.
Yeah.
And just not regard it at all.
Yeah. I kind of feel like it would be neat. Because, like, yes, I do want them to just have plant forms to be sneaky, but I also feel like they would have some sort of magic similar to that, to where it would, like, it would be, like, even if a Keb's plant form was, like, really colorful and very pretty, it would take a lot for someone to, like, go out of their way to notice it, you know? Like, I feel like that would be a cool thing to include again. If we haven't already.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Yeah, I think we should probably update the Weebly to include that.
Yeah.
But they also have a narrative story of how in tune they are with nature, and just they're connected with druids in their connection with druids and the druidic arts in general, and so plants just kind of perfect sense.
Yeah, exactly. Like they're definitely just very in tune with that kind of stuff. All right, I'm gonna check the chat really quick.
Oh, your chat overlay isn't showing up on the stream.
Oh, what? Oh, I turned it off for something else. Hold on, let me turn on the chat overlay. Chat box, color source. There we go. Okay. If anyone says something, it should show up now. It did not. Oh, my icon's turned off. Oh my gosh, I turned off all these things. What's this? No, that's not right. Color source.
So we've got a couple of people in the chat mentioning glamours. So yeah, basically it's just a glamour that gets applied to the plant form to just keep people from either noticing it, or if they do notice it, there's just an urge to look away and they don't really think about it. Latias mentioned I bet Kebs who are really skilled with illusions could probably do that spell better than most, which yeah, definitely if they've trained for illusion spells, then they could basically make it so it's not like they're not even there.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, that's a good point. Like, a grove of, like, a Keb graveyard would probably be just a whole bunch of crazy big trees and stuff, and people wouldn't really notice it, which is kind of wild to think about. Oh, goodness. I love it. Alright, do we want to move on to the next question?
Yeah. So the next question is, how quickly do Kebs age compared to humans? This one was also submitted by Sahara Fang.
Alright. So, I think... what did we talk about? So Kebs pretty much age, like, the same rate as humans until they get to about, like, I want to say 30 or 40 or so. And then their aging starts to slow down. Like, the progression of how quickly they age slows down and gets kind of stretched out. And, like, the older they get, it gets more stretched out, sort of. And that's why they have longer lifespans. They just kind of have a much longer adult life, basically. But their younger years are pretty much exactly the same. Is there anything else?
So basically just, like, plateaus for a bit there.
Yeah. Kind of like trees. Do trees age that way? Because, like, yeah, I suppose. I mean, I guess, yeah, they do.
Grow really rapidly and then get to the big size and then just kind of stay there.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I guess so. I guess Kebs are like plants in that they would do that. Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Next question.
The next question is, what happens to a Keb when they enter hibernation? Does the Keb age along with time, or do they remain in a state where their physical bodies do not change?
They pretty much stay the same. It's kind of like being in cryostasis, I would say. Like, they very much just kind of freeze. And I think T said something earlier about what did you say earlier, T, about clocks, internal clocks? Something related to that.
So I was saying that they would have something like a really good internal clock to keep track of time around them, even though they aren't necessarily inherently aware, given that they're in stasis. So, they would be aware of how many years have passed, and that definitely would play a part in how long they had to wait for all the wars.
Yeah.
Why
Yeah.
the leaders would be able to pop out and check to see how things are going, and then pop back under.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And So they're not conscious of it, but they are aware of it. It's like a subconscious thing while they're resting.
Yeah. It's basically like they can choose to like set a date of when they want to not be a plant anymore, and then they can just turn back into a keb pretty easily. Either that, or like if the deities are like, we gotta wake everybody up, they could probably just like send out some sort of magical wave to be like, hey, wake up, hey, wake up, hey, it's time to wake up.
They're the ultimate alarm clock.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure probably other kebs would probably have some kind of ability to wake up a hibernating one. Like if they're skilled enough with magic, they could probably just like deactivate the stasis.
Mm-hmm.
Druids would be probably very good at that.
Yeah. Especially if there was anything that could be causing harm to like whatever grove they had settled in.
Yeah.
Like if there was some kind of issue where it's like, okay, well, it's not safe to hibernate here anymore, you need to move. I'm sure they could probably just bring them out of it so that they could actually get out.
Like a localized alarm clock kind of
Yeah.
spell or something. Yeah, I think so. I think that makes sense. Because, yeah, we wouldn't want anybody continuing to be asleep and just sleeping through, like, getting chopped down. Like, that would be really bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly.
No, there's no snooze button on this. You have to wake up. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Where's the snooze button on the deities? I'm tired. Latios. Latios, awakened stone dragon. Oh, goodness. Alright. What's the next one?
Next question.
Next
let's
question.
see. Still submitted by Sahara Fang. There was quite a few. How do seasonal skins work lore-wise? Does a keb just shed into their seasonal skin like dogs do with fur, or can they turn it on and off?
So basically, for seasonal skins, they can kind of just shapeshift between them pretty quickly. So like it wouldn't just be like turning on and off a layer, so like suddenly it's just like pop and they're all there. It would more just be like their body would like change shape to match it pretty much. And it would happen probably within like a few seconds, so it'd be a pretty quick change, but they wouldn't like shed into them over time because that would be kind of inconvenient, especially for like skins that they need for like flying or skins for swimming around underwater. Like they would need those to be able to be useful pretty quickly, so they'd probably switch between them fairly quickly, or fairly quickly.
Especially considering there's just a base form additionally, because if they were in each form for each season, which they could very well choose to.
Oh yeah.
When would their base form?
Yeah, exactly. So it would be very useful for them.
It's also something that helps with like, I guess not really blending in per se, but like you could definitely use it for camouflage in some instances.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
If they have their seasonal forms set for seasonal time so that their colors blend in better with plants that they're around, or things like that, then it would make sense to use them in those seasons. But they're more or less just different varieties, and we only named them seasonal skins just because we wanted to include something for the seasonal events for the group. Like it's more of a game mechanic than it is a lore thing as far as naming them seasonal skins.
Yeah. Let me catch up on the...
Alright, did we want to move on to the next question?
Yeah, I think so.
Okie dokie. Alright, this one is also submitted by Sahara Fang. I think this is the last on the list. The question is, are there any traits or attributes favored by certain areas or terrains anatomy-wise?
This is a good question. I'm excited to discuss about this question. So the short answer would be yes. There's definitely like the more obvious ones like fishtails and gills would definitely be favored by kebs that are in the underwater hub. Wings would probably be more favored in hubs that have to do with like very steep hills and inclines and like living up in the trees just because it'd be more useful. In like the colder climates, they could have traits that are like more to do with staying warm and like having thicker coats and stuff. And in the hotter climates, they'd probably not have very thick coats or anything like that, just because it wouldn't help them. And I think Hayden, we talked about like discussing, like I don't want to say, would it be cultural related traits for certain hubs, like having a culture of popular traits in certain places?
Oh yeah, that's definitely a cultural thing for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, like just off the top of your head, for all of you guys who are in the voice chat with us, what would you say would be like a culturally significant trait that people in like the mythic forest would have?
Any kind of plant horns or...
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, that would probably be good.
Definitely.
I could see the like the petal mains or overgrowth probably being popular in like the flower islands. Just
Yeah.
so they could go like run around in the flowers and still
And
blend in.
look like a flower.
Bark legs would also probably be pretty popular in the mythic forest.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Anything to make you look like a log. A log with moss on it.
A log in
Leftia says braided fur, lots of flowers, magical objects.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, definitely the kind of culture that surrounds mythic forest is very druidic in nature, magical. So any kind of like adding little beads or little plants to braids, things like that would probably be something significant.
Oh yeah, definitely.
There's also in the northern hubs, the more frozen hubs, the winter coat, the candle horns, front hooves, even shimmering snow fur for camouflage, ice wings so your wings don't get cold.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
definitely.
Lore mentioned probably traits that represent the local deities too. So that's definitely like getting an enchantment to change your horns to represent something closer to Lightsong's horns in the mythic forest, since it's right next to the shrine there.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of iridescent traits in the desert areas to represent oil slick.
Yeah, definitely also like metallic too, just because like, yeah, definitely. Kev's looking up to hub leaders and trying to copy them. Oh my god.
Yes,
I love that. Wonderful, perfect. A++. You good job. Love it.
Gold.
Oh, Latias mentioned this too. For the Junker Hub, lots of scars or cut tails, missing broken horns. That is something we discussed, is that there's probably a lot of people who have prosthetics or like various scarred up, broken things there because, it's sort of a more war-torn area, and they had to do a lot of rebuilding, so people probably look a bit beat up there, but
definitely
something.
Alright. Let's see.
Want to go on to the next one?
Yeah, I think so.
All right. This question was submitted by Wolfie Sparks. How does combining traits work in canon? Are all items used at the same time, or are the traits / enchantments woven together?
So, basically, when you want to go get an enchantment done, when you're a Keb and you want to get an enchantment done, you would go to an enchanter. And that would be a Keb that is like especially skilled at, creating enchantments, especially ones that you'd specifically want. So there's probably, you know, like, specific kebs that are good at, like, flower enchantments for enchanting your flowers and making them look a certain way. Or kebs that are really good at making wings and making specific types of wings. So you'd probably want to go to someone who can do wings, and then you would just say, oh, here I am, and I have either enchanted stones to give to you, or, you know, some sort of currency. In our group, it's enchanted stones, just so that we can have, like, you know, a variably easy to earn type of currency that makes sense for the system. But, like, in canon, you could probably go to an enchanter and be like, I have a whole bunch of gold coins, I would like to purchase an enchantment. And they would be like, sure. Or you could be like, hey, I have a whole bunch of enchanted stones or enchanted crystals, I would like to trade these for an enchantment. And so then that keb would then use a portion of the enchanted stones to actually apply the enchantment to you, and then keep the leftovers as payment for purchasing the enchantment and, like, the, you know, going through the steps of actually getting the enchantment done. And it would all be done at the same time, so the enchanter would probably combine the enchantments together in order to apply them, and then when they're applied, it would just be there.
So a couple people in the chat, Sunny and Lottie, both mentioned that enchanters are like tattooed parlors, basically. Which, yeah, I think we've discussed previously before. And like what you've brought up as well is that, like, if you're looking to get a tattoo done and you want a specific type of tattoo, you kind of research around to see, you know, what people are good at, and you find the right tattoo artist for you to get, you know, the look you're going for.
Yeah.
So it would be something similar for enchantments, where, like, you know, you're looking for wings, so you go to someone who specializes in wing enchantments, or you're looking for, you know, different kinds of horns, or you're looking for trailing magical runes, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But what I always imagined, and I know you mentioned that you could either trade for ES or you could, like, give money for it. But I imagine for the more rare enchantments, especially like the seasonal ones, you would basically have to give them the material components required to create that enchantment. So that's what, like, the enchanted candy corn and all of that kind of stuff is, where, like, you get those things which are more rare components, and you provide that to the enchanter, and you're like, hey, I have these things, here are the ingredients you need, can you give me bat wings, or, you know, can you give me little trailing ghost familiars? Like,
yeah,
it's probably something where it's more rare to find those specific ingredients, so you do have to provide them up front when you're trying to get the enchantments.
Yeah, exactly.
And so the stones and not the stones, the candy corn and the roses are sort of a narrative shorthand for whatever it would be required from.
Yeah, exactly.
Just to make things a little less confusing, because I feel like if we had, you know, a dozen different components, it would be a heck of a lot to keep track of what you needed, where it's just like, okay, I need 2 roses, I got it.
Yeah.
And so for
I have newt, tongue of frog.
for us, it's for
I have that.
I need all of these things. Oh, dang it.
Yeah.
Also, someone said, the Delta Werewolf said, now I'm wondering what a botched enchantment would look like. This is a good question.
Someone who is not very good at enchanting trying to do an enchantment.
You want metallic marking?
With, like, lopsided wings.
you want a gold metallic marking? Okay, and then they do it, and it's not even metallic. They just change it to lime green. It's just like,
It has the missing texture, magenta and black checkerboard.
Oh my gosh! Oh no! Oh
That's why
god.
they have to go through years of rigorous training.
Yeah, they definitely have to have some sort of licensing of being an official enchanter, like you would a tattoo artist. You wouldn't just let anybody like do that, because that would be oh, that would be so silly.
Error 404, enchantment not found.
Yeah. It's like, oof, that doesn't look, where'd you get your wings done? Over there. Don't they look great? No. Goodness.
Oh, honey.
Latias asked, could you have a Keb who does their own enchantments for like story purposes, or would enchantments always be done by someone else? And like you did kind of bring that up recently, where they have to be like authorized to be able to do that. But I could definitely see, you know, for story purposes, if you want your Keb to be a very magical character, then it would make sense they would be able to do their own enchantments.
Yeah.
You know, for balancing purposes for the group, you still have to pay for them, of course, but that would just be like the materials that they would need to do the enchantment in that instance.
Yeah. And also I would say like it might have to do with, well, because we are gonna have the schools of magic be a thing soon too, and like skill points and all that. So it would probably depend on like where your magical skill was. If you wanted to say like my Kev is, you know, like literally if you wanted your Kev to be technically like a master in doing enchantments, you would have to max out their enchantment levels, I guess, like whatever we would decide to do with how we're gonna do that. But you could definitely do that for story purposes. For story purposes, have your Keb be a maxed out level enchanter, and then in character just be like, yeah, my Keb does their own enchantments. They can just do that, and like, hey, cool. And we can also like, that's another thing too, is like depending on where we go with like the schools of magic, we could have certain things like that have perks where like it makes enchantments cost a little bit less or something like that.
Oh yeah, like a discount for getting ES traits.
Just for that one Keb though, so that like if they wanted to get enchantments done to themselves, because in character they can do it themselves, they wouldn't have to like technically pay the extra fee to like have another Keb do it. So instead they can do it. They would still have to use ES to do it, but it would just be slightly less than what it would originally be because they're the one doing the enchantment instead. Which could be interesting. Potentially.
We got a lot out of that question.
Yeah, goodness, that was a good question.
All right. Let's go ahead and move on to some more anatomy questions. These ones were submitted by Sunny Ditto.
All right.
So let's go with the first one here. Assuming that Kebs are mammalian in nature, how long are kittens on milk before they are weaned to normal food?
I think we talked about this. What was my answer to this? Oh, I need to scroll down. Oh no. Command traits. Oh, there we are. Okay. So, baby Kebs would probably drink milk for like the first 2 or 3 months before they would move on to solid food.
You okay, Ben?
My cat is eating my mic.
No!
Jackson, please.
Jackson.
People have questions. They need answers.
That is a good question. Are Keb babies called kittens?
We don't know. We've never actually given an answer to this. We always just say babies.
Should we come up with Keb? What? Keb baby? A kebab? What should we call baby Kebs? We need an answer for the people.
The people want answers.
They need them.
They demand it.
I mean, kittens could definitely work. Keb kittens.
Yeah. A couple of people say pups, which we have also discussed before.
Keb puppies. True. Kits.
Oh, baby.
Ah! Hello, cat. You have good, important information to share. Thank you.
Yep.
That's a good question.
Drew says voting for baby Kebs being called sprites, which I think is very cute.
Sprites!
Saplings
Adorable.
is adorable.
Saplings!
Saplings is a good idea.
Ah! That's so cute!
Because they're little plants.
Yeah! Oh, Keb sprouts.
Little sprout. Oh goodness.
Oh no. These are good.
Parents affectionately calling their kids Little Sprout.
No! You've ended me! No, that's too cute. No. Okay, I'm gonna write a note on my thing. On my image that I'm drawing.
Oh, I sent a note.
Oh, wonderful, thank you. Alright, so... Keb babies, we'll figure that out at another time. But we've gotten some very, very good important input here today. So that's good. Let's see.
Yeah, so we didn't actually answer the question. We got distracted halfway through about what to call them.
What was the question?
How long do baby calves milk before they're weaned to normal food?
Oh, I thought I said, like the first 2 to 3 months.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, we're good, we're good.
Alright. The next is... 1, do calves have litters? 2, if they are giving birth to multiple, can they have, or can they carry multiple babies from different progenitors? For example, female bears can have 2 cubs from different males at the same time.
Kebs probably have not very many children at the same time. Like, I would equate it to, like, the amount of children that humans have. Like, probably 1 to 2 babies around there usually. And yes, they can have different fathers. It's just not a very common thing to happen because they work pretty much the same as mammals, and that can happen in mammals, and it can happen in humans even too, but it's just not, it's not a very common thing that does happen. It's very rare.
Alrighty. Let's see. I'm gonna skip ahead a couple because there's another one that's related to that question more. People have asked before in totally lost my train of thought. People have asked before in the Discord if calves can be pollinated while they're in their plant form, or if like their plant form actually relates to any kind of like fruit or anything like that. And just general questions about whether, or I guess how calves reproduce.
Calves reproduce the same way mammals would. I'm not gonna go into that because, you know, I don't want to do the birds and the bees talk with y'all, but but no, they cannot be pollinated from their flowers. Their flowers are not real flowers. They're basically like, what's the word? Sorry, say again?
Ornamental?
Yeah, they're basically like enchanted constructs. Like, they're not real flowers. They're just there for looks and being sneaky, pretty much. So there's no pollen on them. There's no nectar. They're purely ornamental. They just, is flowers cute? They're there. That's it. That's the whole thing. So.
And insects that might be tempted are also affected. Just, you know, pretty flower. They're also affected by that same sense of being turned away, so they don't have that. They will not actively try.
Yeah, like they wouldn't really notice. They would much rather go to a real flower than they would a Keb flower, because it just wouldn't make sense to. But yeah, there you go. And also same thing with like the fruit flowers. You would not be able to pick the fruit and then eat it. It would just dissipate into like dust pretty much. Like they're not real fruit. It does not work that way.
Alrighty.
Okay. Was the next question?
So yeah, this is also submitted by Sunny Ditto. The question states, Kebs can shapeshift, this is clear. A lot of the enchanted traits are cosmetic and almost illusory, but things like bonus tails, gills, fish tails, fins, wings, etc. seem to actually affect their bodies, allowing them to fly or breathe underwater. Since we've always been under the assumption that kebs with fishtails and or gills can breathe underwater, would their shape-shifting abilities allow them to breathe underwater without these traits? And then, just as a general question, like how exactly do physical traits work versus illusions and all of that?
So basically, a keb would not be able to breathe underwater unless it had a trait that allowed it to do so. They don't naturally have gills, they have lungs. What is my brush doing? Oh, I was on the wrong brush. They don't have gills, they have lungs. So unless they had an enchantment that gave them gills, they would not be able to breathe underwater. It's very similar to, like, what's the word? You know how in Harry Potter where, like, they use magic to be able to breathe underwater in, like, the Tri-Wizard tournament thingy? I don't remember the name of that. But, like...
You got it.
Okay. But, like, they do technically change their form in order to be able to breathe underwater and, like, be able to swim and stuff, because his feet turned into, like, those fin things or whatever. But, like, it's not actually changed. Like, it's not changed permanently. It's just an enchantment that allows you to do something. You're being allowed to do something because of magic. And then when you're done using that magic, you can switch back to being able to walk around on land and you'll be fine. And did this question also include the question about, like, what traits actually affect their physical form? Is it this question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Also, all enchantments, as long as they're attached to the keb, are physically there. Like, if you get metallic markings and you apply it to the horns, and so you have metallic gold horns, if someone were to touch the horns, they would feel like metal. Tap it, it would sound like metal. It would look like they were made of gold, or whatever metal you wanted them to look like. If you broke the horn off, it would no longer look like metal. It would just look like the original Kebanzu's horn before it was removed. Or if a Kebanzu had wings and you removed a feather, the feather would dissipate into nothingness because it's no longer attached to the enchantment and it's not a real feather. But as long as it's attached to the keb and is there, the keb can use it to fly and use those wings as wings because they're there. But as soon as they're removed, as soon as the enchantment is removed from the keb, it no longer exists. The only one that's kind of finicky would be like, what is it? Like elemental enchantments where they have like lightning markings or enchanted or what is it? Elemental tails, like where like
fire main or fire tail.
Yeah, and that would look like fire and it would act like fire, but you would not be able to catch anything on fire with it because it's magic fire. It would not burn anything. You would not feel heat from it per se. It would be affected by like wind. It would like die down if it was getting blown by some strong wind, or if you held your hand over it, it would curl over your hand, but it wouldn't burn anything. It wouldn't leave soot on anything. It's there, but it's not real fire.
So most of them do have a functional purpose and an aesthetic purpose, but all of them are aesthetic, but not all of them are function.
Yeah.
There's a Venn diagram, and
basically,
it's a Venn diagram where one's a really big circle and the other circle's inside of it entirely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That does, like, I am curious as to whether the trailing ones are, like, have any physical weight to them. Like the trailing familiars or like the trailing objects that we just added in for spring.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do those feel like physical items as long as they're within the keb's like aura or range of magic or whatever? Or
yes.
Like, would you just pass through them?
As long as they're near enough to the keb, they would still they would definitely still like be there and be touchable. Like if I had trailing objects and was followed by a giant couch and tried to go through a doorway that was too small, it would get stuck. It wouldn't go through the door. It would get stuck there, and then if they walked too far away, it would just disappear. Like, you know, the objects still exist, and they still get affected by the real world. And, you know, that would probably destroy the enchantment, so you'd have to be careful about what you're, like... You'd probably want to put that on a skin so that you can turn it off if you need to, because otherwise you would put a lot of risk on losing your enchantments just by going in a house, which would be really inconvenient.
Well, would it break the enchantment, or would it just cause it to reappear once there's room for that to show up again? So,
Oh, that's a good
if they
point.
walk through a door and it disappeared, and they get into a big room, and then a couch just appears in that room next to them.
You know what? That's a good point. Let's do that instead. Let's do that, because I like the idea of that. That sounds fun.
In regard to the rain putting out the fire tail, it wouldn't, because that one is purely aesthetic.
Yes. Like,
Yeah, so
like
it would probably dampen it, so it would be less, but it wouldn't snuff it out.
yeah.
Yeah, it wouldn't be in any danger either, because it's not actual literal fire. It's not...
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You'd get a little bit of Charmander tail fading, but it wouldn't go out.
Yeah. So it is not actually on fire. Thankfully, that would hurt a lot, I would think.
Yeah.
That'd be very uncomfortable.
Similarly, the rainy clouds wouldn't actually, you know, get things wet, and the what is it? The lightning markings wouldn't actually zap people.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my gosh. Could you imagine someone with the lightning marking, and it's like zapping out towards people, but it's just reacting the way that like plasma balls do?
Ah, that'd be great. I love it.
The lightning is just kind of like gently like zooming over them.
Yeah. Wiggling. Wonderful. Fantastic. I love it. Alright, should we go on to the next question?
Yeah, next question. Okay, yeah, so this was the attached question, just being which traits physically affect the body, which ones are illusory. So we've gone over that. We went over the plant form thing. All right. Next.
Compile a list of the illusory and functional traits so that people can have it at a glance.
That's right.
Yeah, I think a couple people were working on that. I know Latias at one point said that they were building a list somewhere. But yeah, it would probably be good to have a more comprehensive list, or like include that on the Weebly somewhere.
Yeah, definitely.
So the next category is relating to magic and deities. These ones were submitted by Lord Starryface.
Bee!
Hello!
Hello.
So these ones are regarding the constructs that Lightsong and Oil Slick can control. I don't know if that's been brought up too frequently in the group, so I don't know if you have an example to show people, Hawk.
I don't have an example.
Currently.
I can bring up the visual from the Weebly. Just for fun.
Oh, is it on the Weebly already?
Yeah, I've got the constructs on there. Wow.
Oh, okay.
Deities. Here are their little constructs. Here's the other one. Oh wait, what was the question? Did we actually ask the question?
So the first question is, one, are they visibly made of inorganic things? Or once assembled, do they become living and breathing, only turn back into inorganic material again after they are no longer needed?
They are literally made of the things that are listed. So, for Lightsong's constructs, they literally look like moving statues of marble that get like cracks in them as they move, and have like little plants growing within those cracks and around on them, and like have certain sections that are made of gold. Like, they literally look like that is what they are made of. And for Oil Slicks, they literally look like they're made out of sand and little wisps of smoke and little details of gold. And basically, like, when they're used, I kind of imagine it as like, at least for Lightsong, I imagine that he has just Kebanzu constructs statues just around in his temple, and so when he needs them to do something, he would basically just like, you know, I don't want to say like command a statue to do something, but kind of, and it would just like get up off of its pedestal and go and do whatever tasks that he asks of it. And then similarly to Oil Slick, except for he probably would just rise them from the sands around him since he's always out in the desert, which would be pretty cool looking just to do.
That's dope.
So yeah, they are literally made out of those things. They are completely inanimate objects that are just like capsules for magical energy to do a task.
Nice. All right, and then the second part of that question is, do they have any distinct personalities, or are they all just a copy paste of each other? Do they have any like personality to show whatsoever?
No, not really. They're pretty much just like one of the deities needs a message to be sent, so this, instead of having an actual Keb send a message and like carry it all the way to who knows where, they can just give the message to one of the constructs and it would go on that venture and bring the message to wherever it needs to go, and then it would come back from its long journey.
I would also imagine that since they are the deities and they can control these different constructs, that if any of the constructs were built in any of the more far-flung regions, like the I don't remember what the place was called, but the hub that was just created from the contest that Sari and Horizon worked on.
Oh, Shinori.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Shinori.
where there's all those like big beautiful statues to the deities there.
Yeah.
I would imagine some of the constructs would be stationed there as well, so that Plightson could just activate one
Oh yeah.
Oh, please.
instead of having to travel all the way from his sanctuary.
Yeah, definitely.
It might
Imagine like the really, really big ones moving.
Yeah. That'd be so cool.
It might be a cultural thing to just have a like construct, because religion doesn't seem to be like a huge part of the Keb world. Like when you can physically interact with your deity, it's kind of loses some of the mysticalness. But
Yeah.
I feel like it could be entirely possible that every hub has its own construct, not necessarily of both, probably one or both, depending, given how Oil Slick constructs his. But it would kind of make sense for them to have, you know, dedicated constructs in every location just in case.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, that'd be really
Yeah.
cool too. They could be used as like, you know how, I'm trying to think, like, what is the word? Not a temple, because that is not the word, but people bring offerings to a thing that
Shrine.
represents a shrine. Thank you. Yes, they could definitely be used as like a shrine of being like, here is the construct sitting here, and it just looks like a big statue, and people can like leave flowers and stuff as like a way of honoring that they respect this deity or follow this deity.
All right. Latias has a question, and I do want to get to that, but let's do the part 3 for Sari's question first, really quick, which is, do the constructs differ in appearance at all, such as horn shapes, sizes, and different shapes and sizes of the construct itself, or do they all look exactly the same?
They do differ in appearance. So the ones that I have on the Weebly are just average ideas of what they look like, but there are definitely bigger ones that are bulkier, more sleek ones that are smaller, and their horn traits would definitely vary between each construct, just so that they can be told apart and add some nice variety to them, because having them all look exactly the same might get confusing for like, I don't remember if I asked you to take a message or I asked you to take a message, but I asked someone to take a message and I don't remember who it was. So like, that could get a little bit confusing, so I definitely think that each construct individually would look different.
And then another question that I also wanted to throw in while we're still on the topic of the constructs specifically.
Yeah.
I know that the deities can command them to do things, but is it something where they can also like use them as an avatar temporarily? Like if they wanted to just appear to someone and speak to them, could they just like basically possess one of them to speak through them?
That's a good question. They'd probably, like, I suppose in that kind of situation, they'd probably just send a message with a construct to that person that they needed to talk to. Or if it was very important, they would go to that person and talk to them, which probably wouldn't be something that they would do very often, but if it was like dire straits or like they really had to talk to this person for some reason, they would go out of their way just to directly talk to them.
Can I ask, if there was, like, say, a construct in a different hub where the deities weren't, could they telepathically ask a deity to speak to somebody, or would they have to physically talk to them to send a message?
Like the Keb asking a question to a construct, or the deity sending a telepathic message to a construct in order to bring a message to somebody?
I meant the second one, but the first one, like, would just be like the opposite direction, I suppose.
I would say they probably can do something like that. Like if they wanted to communicate a message to a hub that was very far away, they probably could just send out a telepathic message to a construct that they know is there and be like, please bring this message to this person, and then it would go on its quest and do that. So I think they could do that. I don't know if it could be the other way around, so it would probably be that, like, if someone gave a message back to a construct, they would have to physically bring it to the deity, like a letter or something, because Kebs aren't directly connected to the constructs, so they wouldn't be able to speak through them.
Do you think maybe if they had a high enough like form of magic that allows them some kind of divination, they would be able to like commune with the deities and like try to send a message to them through magical means so that they are aware of that?
I think so. It would just depend on how magically inclined they are and how much they have like to dispose of and use for that.
Alrighty. So Latias asked in the chat, I know the two deities have their own hub, but do they technically have more hubs under their rule, so to speak? Like Lightsong has the temple, but also the Mythic Forest and the Meadow? So are there any hubs that would specifically be under one or the other's influence?
I would say it would probably depend on like the population in that hub and like how they feel about the deities, because there's definitely some areas that would be more apt to follow one deity than another, and vice versa. So it would kind of depend on just like who they were more inclined to, I don't want to say worship, but like follow in that area. So like I think the Ultraviolet Underground is primarily people that follow Oil Slick, even though they're not anywhere near Oil Slick's caravan. And then people in the Mythic Forest do generally more so follow Lightsong, but it's kind of more of a mixed bag there because there's a lot of Kebs in that area and they're very spaced out, so they all have their own set of like beliefs pretty much, or like ways that they work around in their world. What's the word? I guess it just kind of depends. But they don't command any other hubs besides their temples, basically. Like, Oil Slick commands his caravan and Lightsong commands his temple technically, but they're not real hubs. Like, they're small, they're very small hubs comparatively to other ones. They're just basically like that. This is their home and this is what they do here. And sometimes other Kebs are there because they're very devout followers of that deity, and they want to be close to them. They want to like serve them or help upkeep with that hub. But people don't like traditionally live there, so they're generally very small. And yeah, so other hubs are basically just like, they're not under the command of either, they're kind of under the command of like both in terms of like influence. It just kind of depends on like how closely those Kebs follow Oil Slick or Light Song, but they don't actually like lead those hubs. I hope that answers that question.
Seems like a good answer.
Hmm.
All right, so we've got another question here, which there was no username provided with the question submitted, but the question is regarding the recent lore update. States that some members of the other species are sensitive to magic or able to wield it. Do we have any examples of what kind of magic they're capable of? I believe this was asked in the Discord before, but we brought it back up so we could dive into it a little bit further.
Yes. Okay, so for humans, it's kind of like humans that are sensitive to magic are basically going to be uncannily good at very specific things. Like they might be considered to be very, very lucky for some strange unknown reason, or really, really, really good at taking care of plants for some reason, or really good at like working with fire for some reason. Like they basically are more lucky or more like unusually skilled in some way that doesn't really have to do with their amount of experience or amount of like skills that they've built up. It's just kind of like, yeah, for some reason, you know, our son is really good at taking care of plants. Like you can give him a dead plant and even before he starts taking care of it, it'll start to look happier just being in his presence, and no one knows why that is. So kind of like that. For Sahir, they have a higher grasp of magic. They're basically able to like actively do certain things. Like if you brought them a person that was injured, they could help heal that person. Or if you brought them a dead plant, they could actively heal that plant and bring it back to life. Or make something levitate that isn't very big. They don't have as high of powers as Kebs do, but they do have a much closer understanding of magic than humans do. And then Tainen don't have pretty much any magical abilities. Like, at least it's not very common for them to, but if they were a specific individual who had closer ties to magic, or had more understanding of magic, or like were for whatever reason just more magically inclined, they could probably have a similar level as what humans do when they're closer to magic. So they would just be weirdly good at one skill or another, even though they haven't put a lot of time into practicing that skill.
Latias also brought up regarding this, could those magic sensitive people be trained by a Keb to be more proficient?
Oh yeah.
Something that like we haven't really gone too far into, I guess, but generally Kebs wouldn't go out of their way to try and teach others about magic because they are so, I guess, exclusive about it. Like after what happened to their original homeworld, they are just, you know, worried that it's going to get out of hand, which is basically what happened that caused the wars in the first place, is that you know, some Kebs went out of their way to give magic to humans and Tainen and things like that, and they used it to build big, horrible machines of war and destruction, and that caused the end of the world, basically. So really the only time that a Keb would go out of their way to teach someone who is sensitive to magic is if they had already planned on like giving them a shifter's emblem and they were going to be a Keb.
Yeah,
and, like,
exactly.
By Keb society.
Yeah, it would definitely depend on if they were already planning on giving them a shifter's emblem and like bringing them into all of that. Otherwise, it would be very unlikely.
It would be, a repeat of what happened before.
So
I feel like it's definitely something they're warned about as well. Like, hey, don't go doing this because this has already ended badly once.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Like I know that it's kind of a thing in the real world, and like the real world human culture, that people don't learn from the mistakes of history, and like history is doomed to repeat itself, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like with Kebs being as long lived as they are, and being able to firsthand experience these things, that's not really the same mentality that would go through. Is that they would definitely learn from their mistakes, and like they saw how bad things got, and it's only been like 50 years or something since the world came to an end and people had to rebuild.
Yeah.
So, like, they have firsthand evidence that, oh, this is bad, we cannot do this.
Yeah, exactly. They would not be ones to make that mistake all over again.
Yeah.
And that's why I would probably say Rens who do have magic because they learned, like, since they did have a form of their own stasis during the wars, the Kebs didn't reteach them. They already learned from the Kebs, and so those histories are kept. And so Rens have magic because they were already taught, not because Kebs are like, yeah, let's go teach them again.
I actually have some interesting information about Rens and magic that I don't know if I've told people yet before. Have I told Hayden? Hayden, have I told that's this before? Because I know we talked about it, but I don't remember if I actually talked about it to you.
A little bit.
But Rens have the reason why Rens have magic is they don't use Keb magic at all whatsoever. Like, it is completely different, a completely different magical, like, I don't know what the word would be, like, teaching that they follow? Yeah, a different magic system that they follow. But basically they craft magical seals, like symbols that do magical things, but it's not, like, they aren't innately magical, but they're like, is it alchemy, basically? Kinda. Like, they do little inscriptions in seals. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Saharavang said, Rens are aliens, changed my mind. Yes,
Rens are aliens. They are completely 100% confirmed.
Technically still are Kebs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have no changing your mind there. They are literally aliens. They are.
But yeah, but back to what you were saying, Hawk, is that basically they enchant like runes or inscribe different sigils or seals into things that create that magical effect rather than producing the magic from themselves.
Yeah, exactly. Like, they don't. Yeah, they don't. God, my brain keeps not working. Yeah, they don't just produce magical things. They are literally creating seals that are magical. And they have to do a lot of studying in order to do that. So magic Rens are kind of like, what's the word? Like, not highly coveted, but people, like, they get paid a lot because not many Rens can do magic.
Yeah, that would be highly coveted.
Okay. Yeah, so they're kind of highly coveted just because most Rens don't do magic, so when you have a Ren that can do, like, make seals that let you shapeshift, that is something that people really want, or that Rens really want for themselves so that they can do those kinds of things. So yeah.
Motias asks if the runes are in another language, and did they make or discover them?
The runes would be in Renfair language, which I haven't written out, but there is technically a language written somewhere, and I just need to actually, like, revisit it and reword it so that, and, like, clean it up. But it is written in a different language. The Rens, I want to say they discovered them from the previous world that they inhabited, because so far they've been to 3 worlds. They had their home world, which sort of fell into descent and really fell apart, and then they had some deities from that world which don't work the same way as Keb deities. Okay, I'm gonna go into this, it's gonna get a little specific, but we're discussing lore, so why not? So basically, in the whole entire world building system of this world that I have, of this universe that I've crafted or whatever, planets have deities, which is basically like the soul of that planet. And the deity that rules over that planet is the one who chooses like what becomes of it. And the deity can stay there and continue to take care of it and nurture it and like add more to it to create a really cool ecosystem and races and just all sorts of things and, you know, like make it a living thing. But sometimes the deities get tired of whatever they're working on and they just decide to leave. And that just leaves the world that they left unfinished, and whoever's living there lives there, but it doesn't really change a whole lot. So basically what happened is originally Ren fairs were on this very one specific world, and they were created by a specific deity, and I don't remember their name, but I think it's on their Weebly. And then 2 more deities showed up because they had not created worlds yet. And so the 3 of them, and also multiple deities, can take care of one world. They can all work together to make something cool. Also a good joke. So anyways, the 2 deities that were traveling through space found this world and were like, hey, can we like co-own this world with you? Can we all take care of it together? And the deity who was living there was like, yeah, totally, we can definitely all take care of it together. So all 3 of them were working on it and, you know, taking care of it and helping it grow and stuff. Except for, as time went on, the first deity that originally made the world started to get corrupt and get jealous and upset and was causing wars and famines and plagues to go on in the world. So the 2 deities that came there were basically just like, okay, we're going to take all of the Rens that are here that haven't been corrupted yet, and we're going to go somewhere else. So they created a big giant spaceship, and all of the Rens that followed those 2 deities got on the spaceship, and they just went off into space for who knows how long, quite a while. And they were out there for probably like several generations, and that's why we have the space traits, because it's a residual of when they were flying through space. Like, they developed these traits that resembled the stars and stuff just because that's the environment that they were in. So they eventually landed on Rara, which is another world, and they were like, okay, we're gonna live here. And Rara was a world that had been abandoned, and it had a whole bunch of races that were already living there, but they were basically having a rough time because like their deity abandoned them because it just got tired of taking care of that world. So the Ren deities decided, okay, we're going to start taking care of this world, and we're going to develop it into a place that's nice. And the Rens that live here we're going to have them live here. So then, from there, some of the Rens that lived on that world were like, hey, we just want to continue exploring space because space is cool and that was kind of fun. So they used the technology that they have, which is basically like, it looks like liquid metal and they can control it telepathically. That's kind of their big thing, is they can control this technology telepathically. So they decided to build themselves a spaceship, go back into space, and just travel across the galaxy just to see what they could find. And eventually they stumbled across the Kebanzu world and were like, hey, this looks pretty cool, let's live here. And so they landed in the, I don't remember the name of it, I think it's called like the Floating Islands or something? The like anti-gravity islands or whatever. And they were like, this is cool, it reminds us of home. So they decided to live there, and that's why Rens are on the Kebanzu world. They are absolutely 100% aliens from another planet, and that's why they have different stuff. And they are very non-hostile creatures. They're very much like hands-off. They like to observe things more than interact with things. But they ended up befriending Kebanzus and learning their language, and like, they can't really partake in the magic that Kebanzus do just because they're from a completely different system, but they have their own sets of magic that they use and can mess around with and play with and stuff. So, I don't remember what the original question was, but there's a bunch of information about Ren Fairs.
There was an additional question about what type of technology the Rens have.
Yes. Is completely different from our idea of modern technology. They have telepathic technology, basically. Like, they have stuff that they can turn into whatever they want, and that's pretty good for them. Other than that, they really lean towards having things that are like handmade and woven. They put a lot of emphasis and a lot of value on things that are made by an individual. So they're very like, they're super duper into making big woven tapestries and like really well made handmade goods that are like artisan goods, I guess. They're really into that, and they put a lot of emphasis on that. So they haven't gone into like they don't have video games, they don't have computers, but they have like crazy high-tech spaceships that they can use to travel. But other than that, they really enjoy just creating things. Like, that's kind of their big thing, is they just like to make really well made things, and they get fun out of that, and they like to lay in the sun, and they like to just relax, and they're very chill overall, and have a weird set of things that they value, I guess. But
So
go ahead.
they see their advanced technology more as a means to an end, and they put their actual effort into creating something that's more meaningful. So it's more about practicality versus entertainment purposes.
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
exactly. Like, the technology they use is a tool. It's not really like a source of entertainment. It's just like, we have this and we're going to use it for this specific reason. And that reason is usually traveling or building structures if they need help with that. But otherwise, they like to put all of their time into like honing their craft and like making really neat things with their hands, because they like to do that. Also, someone...
because if it's a piece of or like a type of metal that they can control mentally, then it basically turns into a multi-purpose tool.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can rearrange it to be, stuff that you need for weaving, or something that you need to like assemble a building, or something that you need to get around faster, or space travel. But it is just like T said, a means to an end. It's a tool to be used, but what they value more is the things that they make with it.
Yeah, exactly. And someone, Visra, asked, what kind of architecture should we look at for references when it comes to run buildings? Let me bring one up really quickly, because I've got a Ren building in my gallery somewhere. So
Yeah, I was gonna say, I thought we had a reference for that, but I couldn't find it on the Weebly.
here it is.
I have seen you drew a picture of it, but I don't know if it's on the Weebly.
It is very old.
Also, T, would you be able to read the next question if we get to that? I have to go to the bathroom really quick.
Absolutely.
All right.
I think
So
we're starting on the society and culture next.
So basically, Run Fair buildings are tiered treehouse type of things, and they put all of their crazy weavings around the walls as walls. Like, they use their fabric weavings as walls to decorate it, and they have a lot of little decorative flags and lots of decorative pillows and cozy things everywhere. Like, they're very into making areas very comforting and very fun to live in. So they're very into making multi-tiered houses and trees. They just like that kind of aesthetic for their buildings. But yes, this is how they live.
Are you ready for the next question?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Going on to history, society, and culture. What exactly is a hub?
Alrighty. This, I think I have said before what a hub is, but I might actually draw up... I'm going to make a new folder real quick, so I can draw an example, because sometimes it's hard to understand without an example. So basically, a hub is something that is created by a hub generator. Hub generators are basically... they bring up... what's the word? They basically power another level of reality to be sneaky. So, like, let's say this circle is in a field. So here's a circle in a field, and here's a little hub generator at the center of it. And the hub generator will take up this amount of space. And when you turn the hub generator on, it creates a copy of that field in the same spot. I'm just putting it up a little bit because it makes it easier to understand. And basically both dimensions are like existing on the same space, but the hub generator is powering the extra one where the Kebs are gonna be. And the Kebs can pretty much freely go between the dimensions at the borders. So if they want to leave, they would just leave this way, and if they wanted to go to the human one, they would just choose to go into the human one instead of going into the Keb one. So humans cannot immediately jump between these planes, but Kebs can. But humans cannot. And a hub is, like, to get more specific with it, hubs are their cities. I don't think that's what the question was, but yeah, that's how hub works generally.
And it also helps to preserve the homeworld, or the fragments of the homeworld that they left behind.
Yeah, it's kind of like it is a little, it's closer to their magical realm than the current one is.
So similar to like the way that is it the astral plane? Yeah, the astral plane is described in D&D, where you're still seeing the world around you, but you're not being seen by other people who are there.
Yeah.
Kind of. Like, yeah, it's two different dimensions basically overlapping onto the same space.
Mm-hmm. Like, you would still be able to look out, like, if you were standing at the very edge of it, and you looked out into the field, you could see whoever was in the field. You could see people, you could see Kebs, like, whatever is in that field would be there. But anybody who's outside looking back would not see you. They would see, if there was a human city there, they would see the human city. If there was an empty field there, they would see an empty field. Like, they would not be able to see you, but you would be able to see them.
So on a related note to that, if a hub is created, let's say out in an open field, and they have built up buildings inside of the hub where they don't exist normally.
Yeah.
And a human walked through that space where the hub is, but didn't go into the hub, would you see almost like a ghosting effect? Like the existence of the human kind of walking through where the space is, but not actually running into anything that's there?
I would say it would kind of depend. Like, if it was... You probably wouldn't, because that might freak people out sometimes. Like, I'm trying to think of, like, it would really suck if they walked into your house and you just saw, like, a ghost walking around in your house. Like, that would be scary and inconvenient. So, you probably can't...
I would think that, like, if it is something that does happen, I would think that Kebs would be more used to it.
Maybe.
Like, I don't know, I guess it just depends. But, like, as far as, like, open hubs are concerned, it's something where even humans would be able to walk in and out of, because that's what whoever, set up the hub allows for.
Yeah. Like, if it's an open hub, then anyone who is walking by would be able to see it. Like, the Junker hub is one of the few open hubs that's technically still closed. Like, that hub will go out of its way to avoid humans, but if a human saw it from a distance, they would be able to see the hub. But it more so relies on physically getting away from people than keeping them out by, magic.
And then on that same topic, because we've only kind of briefly gone into it, we haven't described it too in depth, but so for Sunset City,
yes,
that was a big city that had sort of collapsed and become dilapidated after the wars, and no one was really living there anymore. So when some Kebs came to that area and saw that there were still some buildings that were intact and others that they could probably rebuild or build off of, then they set up a hub there and started building things off of those structures within the hub.
Mm-hmm.
So if that hub was ever deactivated, would all of those buildings that they built up in the hub just cease to exist, or would it be something where like I guess it depends on how it's like turned off, but like if they deactivate that hub, would all of those items just stay in that pocket dimension until the hub is turned back on?
It definitely depends, because I would imagine that there's different settings on hub generators. So like you can have a setting for show this hub, it is now open. It's still being generated and held by the hub generator, but it can now be visible from outside and interacted with by anybody, so that if they wanted to let humans in to do like trade and stuff like that, they could. And then there's also probably another setting for like, okay, turn this hub off, remove everything that we've put here from the real world, and just keep it in this pocket dimension for now, and it would be able to do that. And then if you came back to it, it would just look like a bunch of ruins that were there originally. Yeah, so you could do that. It kind of, there's a lot of different settings that you could mess around with for the hub generators to have them do specific things.
Visera asked a question which we will get into later.
Yes,
I will keep that in mind.
Also, I'm going to be right back really quick. Does everybody want to take a quick little like 5-minute to 10-minute break? Because we're we're more than halfway through the questions, and I have to go to the bathroom.
Alright, that's fine.
Okay.
We'll do a short break.
Alright, so we can come back at, how does 3:30 sound? In like 6 minutes, I guess.
That's fine.
Okay. Break time. And we're back. Meow. Cat sound. Very important. Okay. What's the next question?
Let's see. So we discussed what exactly is a hub? Can anyone come and go from these locations, or is it restricted to residents only? We kind of touched on that a little bit. But basically, like for open hubs, anyone can come and go. For closed hubs, only Kebs can come and go.
Yeah.
And then the next question was, are there any notable rival hubs, or do they all get along well?
Oh, yeah! This is a good question
This was
because
also
we've got...
submitted by Sahara Fang, by the way.
Alrighty. This is a good question because we've got about a bajillion hubs now. An actual bajillion. So, let me pull up the map.
How much was it total? Like 40... 42? Something?
I think we have like 50.
36?
I think we have 50, maybe. Let me check the numbers.
We have 52.
52!
Oh,
We have
that's a lot of hubs.
of that. Okay, so here's the hub map. And rival hubs is a good question. I've been thinking... I'm just gonna make this encompass my whole page. So I've been thinking that, like, wherever the pirate island is... I haven't named any of these yet, because I don't remember where things are. But the... Wait. Is this Southern Island the pirate one? Or is it
yes.
Comet Island?
And I think it's the Southern Island.
Okay.
I could be wrong.
Or wait, is that the War-Torn Wastes?
I mean, you have a list.
You know, I'm kind of stupid sometimes. Hold on. Let me open this back up. Let me just open up the list that we literally have in the world-building Discord, because I put it there. Where's the pirate one? Tell me... 27 is the War-Torn Wastes. So...
Is that the accurate numbers?
No, it's not. This is not accurate.
You have to get the new one up.
Yeah, I do. Here's the accurate one. Okay, so yeah, so this is the War-Torn Waste. That's not the pirate area. Comet Island, I think, is the pirate one. Let me check. It's 48. God, we have so many
48.
hubs.
Yeah, we have a lot of hubs now.
Comet Island.
Actually,
Yeah, 48.
Oh.
Sorry, what?
I was looking at the underwater one and like, oh, that looks piratey. I was like, nope, that's underwater.
Yeah, that's the Moon Ocean one. So I think probably 48 and 26 are... They don't get along very well because it's Merchant Island and then Pirate Island. So that's probably not the greatest combination to be immediate neighbors, because I'm sure the Pirate Island people keep bringing over stolen goods from human ships and being like, can we sell this stuff here? And they're just like, stop it! Stop doing that! So, you know.
I think that's where it came from, or so help me.
Yeah. So, they probably don't get along too well. Let's see here. I've also thought about, like, we really need to develop stuff between the leaders. Like, there's probably leaders that were together at one point, but then they broke up tragically, and now they hate each other. So, like, that would be pretty entertaining. Let's see. The Southern Red Desert, the Peninsula... I feel like
Just recreating the plot of Black Sails now.
Yeah, I feel like Riptide Shores and Sunset Peninsula would kind of be in competition with each other because they're both, like, really nicer port cities. So, like, they just have... These guys have nice things here to sell, these guys have nice things here to sell, so they're probably just, like, you know, trying to be, like, not trying to be super in competition with each other, but probably trying to one-up each other in what they can offer that's fancy stuff to sell. Anything else immediately that I can think of?
Maybe, like, Garden Meadows versus the ranch one in the desert.
Oh yeah, because they're both
different types of farmers and ranchers.
Yeah, so they probably compete with like producing as much farmed goods as they can. That's a good one. That's a good idea. Who else?
I could see the War-Torn Wastes having a general sort of, not antagonism, but given how, like, not dire would be the best word I can come up with, but how, like, it's called the War-Torn Wastes. I can imagine they don't have a great reputation, or, they don't get along with necessarily everyone with, like, you know, the ultraviolet underground, where everything's super advanced and they're kind of War-Torn Wastes.
Yeah, like they probably definitely wouldn't enjoy if someone from Ultraviolet Underground came over there, they'd probably be a bit like, who do you think you are? Like, why are you even here? Come on. Get out of
Ooh,
here.
look at this city slicker walking into our wasteland.
Yeah, just
With
like
your fancy prosthetics.
it's like, oh, you're way out of your element here, aren't you?
I would imagine the War-Torn Wastes and the Junker Hub would probably be on a similar wavelength, because they're both two hub leaders who built up a community from nothing out of the waste and the rubble that was left behind.
Oh yeah, definitely. I definitely think they'd get along. That too, and then there's I think, who is it? It's up here, 22. There's another older Keb, 21 for the Frozen Ruins. This guy would probably also get along well with those two other hubs, because he is also, or they, I don't remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, he also built up something from a bunch of ruins, just in a completely different direction, being that everything is frozen. But if they ever had to, like, if all the hub leaders had to get together at a table to discuss something, those three would probably sit together.
Yeah.
You know.
And that kind of goes back to the like the noteworthy hubs, or the noteworthy Kebs thing, like ones who are have notoriety in history.
Yeah.
Like those three, I'm sure, are probably pretty high up, because they found all of this ruin from the wars and built up the community to, try and get people back on their feet.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas, like, other hubs were just like, they either didn't have as many ruins, or they were just like, let's just build a little town here, instead of trying to, like, really go super into rebuilding. Where would the hub leaders gather to have a meeting? Asks Ryu. That is a good question.
I would imagine probably one of the central hubs, which, like, we'll go into that for another question in a second. But, like, each continent basically has their own central hub location. So it's like the Mythic Forest for that main continent. It's the Ultraviolet Underground for the continent in the center, and then where was the other one in the
Sky,
right?
The Skystone Expanse.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those are the three
So,
main places. So I'd imagine one of those three places, it would probably be that, like, you would go to, which we'll get into it in a minute, but the hub leaders would, whichever one of the three they were closest to, that's where they would go, and then from there they would meet at a central location, which we will get into.
I would, my guess, just off the top of my head, would have been somewhere neutral, like Late Song's Temple.
Yeah. Like the Mythic Forest one, they would probably meet at Late Song's Temple, because it is, like, at the heart of the forest there.
Yeah.
And then, like, as far as the others, like, since the Ultraviolet Underground is sort of a central location, like, I don't know if it would necessarily take place within it, or if they would have maybe a meeting point that's close to it or something like that.
Yeah, that's a really good question, though. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's a good one that we're gonna have to figure out. Just have a meeting room in Light
Yeah,
Song's
I think
temple.
prior to all of the extra hubs being added, it would have been Mythic Forest exclusively because that is more or less like the central location. But we'll get more into that later.
Yeah.
All right, yeah. So that's pretty. I think that covers the rivalries pretty well.
Yeah. All right. Next question.
Next question is submitted by Alari, and that is: how strict are the borders of closed Kebanzu hubs? Realistically, if a Keb wanted to sneak out or be rebellious, what would happen? And we kind of discussed this a little bit with the like what exactly is a hub question.
Yeah. So basically, like, if a Keb wanted to sneak out and be rebellious, it would be super easy for them to do that. There's nothing stopping Kebs from going in and out of hubs. The only people that get stopped from going in and out of hubs is people, basically. Humans and Tainin are kind of like on a strict list of things that cannot just enter hubs if they want to. They basically have to be invited in or be like follow a Kebanzu into a hub, like, or hold hands with one and be led into a hub in order to get into it. Otherwise, they would just, like, if they looked away from it for a second, or they looked away from the Keb they were following even for a second, that Kebanzu would disappear and they wouldn't be in the hub, basically. So it is very hard for them to get in if they don't have consent, pretty much.
Yeah, but for Kebs leaving, like, Kebs don't all live in hubs. Those are just the central locations where it's easier for them to live.
Yeah.
So, like, Kebs can leave hubs whenever they want. They can go wander the wilderness. They can,
Oh, yeah.
be hermits out in the desert if they wanted to. But, like, there's nothing stopping them from leaving.
Yeah.
And I imagine that their culture and their upbringing is enough that they understand the dangers of that, and they know, like, what it is that they have to avoid for their own safety. But
Yeah, they do not. Kebs are not affected by how closed the hub is or is not. They would be the ones who can freely go between them without any sort of recourse. All right.
So the next question is the Kishin curse getting overhauled?
The answer to that is yes. It is going to be overhauled. We're going to be having it turn into... It's going to be something that's going to be basically an NPC-only kind of thing that's used for story reasons. So people's OCs won't be able to be, like, cursed Kebs or anything like that. But it is going to be overhauled, and we will be using it for story reasons.
For people who are newer to the group, who never got a chance to read over that lore before the lore update came through, before the Weebly was updated to remove it, did you want to just briefly go over what it used to be, or do we want to just wait until we get an update on that?
I can go over what it used to be pretty quick. So, basically, way back in Keb history, this is back, like, before the lore update, so when Kebanzus were still on Earth, technically, before everything got switched to their own planet, because, like, I don't know, it was feeling kind of limited having everything be on Earth. So, back when it was still everybody on Earth, Kishin was a Kebanzu who was captured by humans, and basically what happened is they, like, tormented him and did a bunch of terrible things to him, and when he either escaped or he was rescued, but from that instance, Kebanzu society banded together and created a curse that they could put on either humans or other Kebs as a, like, this is the final say of how you're going to live your life. You have done so many things wrong that you are no longer allowed to live as you once were. It's kind of like a death sentence in a way, but not quite. But basically it would turn them into a Kebanzu that had no magical powers and no remembrance of their human life. or their Kebanzu life. Like, it would just turn them into like a wild animal pretty much, and they would just be set loose off into the forest to go be a wild animal for the rest of their lives and have no recollection of what they once were. So that was the Kishin curse, and it's basically just like, you're not allowed here anymore, and you're not allowed anywhere anymore, and you're just gonna go be an animal in the wilderness, and you'll die out there, and everyone will forget you. And that was pretty much what it was. So, in recent times, we've played with the idea of updating it and changing it, because some people were asking, like, can I use this for my OCs? Can I have a Keb that was cursed? Can I have a human that was cursed? And I was kind of just like, I mean, you can't really use that to interact with the group, because it's such a dramatic thing, and it doesn't, like, in society, it's a historical thing, like, to have someone that is so bad that they get the Kishin curse added to them. That's like a historical event. It does not happen very often. It's like
a very finite punishment.
Yeah, like the deities come together and all the druids come together and they're like, we've decided to do this to this individual because they're that horrible. And then they curse them, and then that's like, all right, your curse has been, like, your sentence has been established. This is your life now. Goodbye. And like, it's a very dramatic thing. So I am going to be revisiting that because I don't like curses. Excuse me. I don't like curses as like a general thing that Kebanzus would just do, because it has a lot of weight to it, and they absolutely would not just curse people because they're upset with them or anything like that. So when you say they go wild, do you mean like, yeah, just a completely feral creature that, like, they do not have the higher thoughts of like reason or anything like that. Like, they would just be a wild animal. Like, like
letting a wolf loose, basically.
Yeah, like they wouldn't get they would have no one else to live with because they would be alone in the wilderness. So, you know, think of that as you will, kind of like a scared stray animal, but also with no one who would want it or anything. And that's just like, it's a bad curse, and you don't want it to happen. It's supposed to be a very harsh punishment for an individual who just used their life to make everybody else's lives horrible. So we will be revisiting that and like messing around with it for the future for story reasons, because it is such a big dramatic thing. So it will be added back, but it will be specifically for story stuff.
Yeah. It wouldn't be anything that you could use in your Keb's backstory or history like that, just because it is something that's so significant.
Mm-hmm. And currently, no, but we'll see.
Next question is, oh wait, did I ask this already?
What?
Did I copy paste it twice? I think I did, because it was somewhere else also. About the notable Kebs?
Oh yeah, I think we talked about that earlier because... Or no, wait, we just talked about it a little bit. Wait, yeah, we did maybe, I think.
What did I do?
I don't know. But we've already talked about notable Kebs, I think. Because we talked about the library Keb and then also the Junker Keb. I think that was because we talked about a different question, though. And it just kind of came out naturally. That's fine. We next question. Oh, this is the something about the deities? Or about that...
I scrolled to the wrong part. Sorry, that's why. Okay.
Oh, no. Or about the world that fucking collapsed. Which, yeah, good question. So, I'm gonna close my door really quick because the lawnmower. I don't know if it was coming through or not, but I'm gonna close my door anyway, just so we cannot hear the lawnmower. All right.
Yeah. The question reads, something about the deities? Question mark. Or about the fucking collapsed. About that world that fucking collapsed.
Yeah, a very good question. Love the wording. Fantastic. Yeah. And it was sent in by anonymous, by some email address, so we don't even know who sent it in, which is
The Holly Raven in chat has claimed that as their question.
Oh, fantastic! I'm so glad. What a good question. All right. So the magic world that Kebs came from, the thing that collapsed and fell apart. Oh boy, that's a whole lot. So, I think we've mostly talked about that being basically like the Feywild and being like just a very magical realm, similar to like what's the word? What is that? Gosh dang, the mod. The Twilight Forest, similar to the Twilight Forest mod for Minecraft, if you have ever played that. It's basically just like a really big expanse of magical land that just has a lot of magic imbued in it. Just like trees grow crazy big because of the magic that is in the land. Plants are always growing everywhere. Creatures are just living in this gorgeous realm. Like crystals are just all over the place. Like it's just really imbued with magic, and just everything has it within it, and everything is just a little weird, and everything is just a little bit more glowy than it should be, and things are just very cool and beautiful and nice. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and like, because everything is so imbued with magic, like I imagine that as the Keb started overmining, like enchanted stones and crystals and overusing the magic, that probably a lot of the plant life would have just started withering and dying. As it was starting to collapse.
Exactly. Like, basically what happened is when Kebs realized that they could use the enchanted stones and the enchanted crystals that grew naturally in this realm to do magic things, they just were like, cool, let's get all of them. And they just started mining and mining and mining and bringing up all these crystals to do magical things and to build magical, like, creations. But the problem is that they went too quick and they took too much out of the land and it started to die. And as that happened, as it started to like sizzle away, that's when the whole thing collapsed. That's when they got all their druids together to extract what magic they could into the forms of the deities, and the whole realm collapsed into the world they're in now, into Terramesia, and that's how they ended up there and how all of that came together.
Before the world collapsed, were they able to use that magic to, like, shift between their home plane and the world of Terramisia, or would that?
A good question.
Like, did they have some experience in that world beforehand, and then that's how they knew that that's where they would have to flee to as it collapsed?
Well, the way that I've thought of it is that they didn't know that that world was there, and that these two realms were just occupying the same space because of the magic for some unknown reason, which we could go way back in the history and come up as to why they're both in the same place at the same time. Because I still haven't established the technical deity for this planet that exists.
Good point. You brought up the whole lore about how exactly deities work in the universe, but I meant to ask earlier, is there a deity for this world? Like, are there multiple deities like one of them came in, created humans, and then fled, another one came in, created Canaan, and then fled, and, or did they just like chill here, make a bunch of stuff, and then book it?
To be honest, they're probably still around taking care of it, and like because the Keb deities aren't technically deities. They call them deities and they follow them, but they aren't technically like the weavers of this fabric. They're just kind of there too, but I haven't established that yet, but I really should, because that is a good point. But I think
we'll talk about that more later.
Yeah, definitely. But I think for story reasons, for Kebs, they would not have known that they were going to end up in this realm, and they just kind of did end up there, and were like, oh, okay, I guess we're here now, because the two like realms were on top of each other.
I realized I forgot to say this, and I don't know how. But you also had said that it looks like the Twilight Forest mod, but it also looks like the Mythic Forest that currently exists dialed up to 11.
Yes. Yes. I think Hayden brought that up earlier, and that is exactly how you'd think of it.
Just like 1000% of the Mythic Forest.
Yeah.
Dig the trees.
Big trees, magic everywhere, glowing everywhere. Unicorns? Yeah, we've got 'em. Somewhere.
Unicorns, we got them.
Yeah. You need it, we got it. It's all magic all the time. All of it. Every day.
Oh my god. It would be so cute to do a bunch of little like postcard designs for the different hubs. Like,
Oh my gosh.
Visit Mythic Forest, unicorns, we got them.
We got them. They're here. You need it, we got it. Hell yeah. That'd be a lot of fun.
So, Alare says, is it pronounced Terramesia and not Terramesia?
Terra Messiah? I don't know. I've been saying Terramesia, like Parmesan, but you know. But you could probably pronounce it either way. That'd be all right.
Yeah, travel posters, that would be so cute.
Travel posters would be fantastic. Well, we are going to be commissioning. Starry is doing the thumbnails. I'm excited about that. I'm so excited about that. I'm hyped. The map, oh my god, the map is going to be so good. But that's not what we're talking about today, but it is going to be fucking excellent. So, you know.
Spoilers, it's going to be lit.
It's going to be pretty dang pog, if I say so myself.
Oh, wow. Wow. Alright, next question.
Next question.
Technology and world setting. This one was submitted by Alari before. Let's see. How exactly do teleportation portals work? Are there a bunch of portals, or can you input coordinates into a specific one?
This is the question! This is the one! Alright, so now bringing up the map again. There are 3 portals. There's one in the Mythic Forest / Lightsong's Temple. There's one in the Ultraviolet Underground. What?
Fen says that it's Starry's birthday.
What? Happy birthday, Starry!
Happy birthday!
Happy
I mean,
birthday!
it's like my birthday tomorrow for you, but it's just gone midnight here, so it's my birthday now.
Happy birthday!
Happy birthday!
Incredible!
Alright, back to the question.
Alright.
Nice carrot.
So there are 3 portals. There's one in the Enchanted Forest / the Lightsong's Temple. There's one in the Ultraviolet Underground, and there is one in the Skystone Expanse. These portals take a lot of magical energy to power up, so they aren't turned on very often. They're usually only turned on for like a specific reason that they need to be turned on, like they need to move a whole bunch of people from one place to another. So like emergencies, or if they're, like we were talking about earlier, if they need to have a hub leader meeting, basically what everybody would do is they would go to the closest portal that they live next to, and then they would all travel to whichever central portal they're going to be meeting at and having a discussion at. So it wouldn't really matter where the discussion would be taking place, but it would be in one of these 3 hubs so that they could all talk with each other. And yes, they're very big, the portals are very large, and they take a lot of magic, so you can't just jump between them all willy-nilly. People can't just be like, oh, I'm just gonna go to the Ultraviolet Underground for the day, turn on the portal. Like, you wouldn't be able to do that. They would just be like, no, take a boat, like, go there physically, go fly, I don't know, take your own... No, don't do that. Like, we have to reroute a bunch of magical power from the hub generator in order to turn the portals on, so no, we're not gonna do that.
Yeah, that is something that we talked about potentially being a thing before, but we've since rethought it and like rebalanced the idea, because otherwise it is very powerful for Kebs to be able to just globe trot.
Yeah, basically.
I did a small sketch of like a concept idea for what it would look like for like the Mythic Forest, at least. I don't remember where I sent that, but
it's in the document. It's in the brainstorming document. Maybe? No, maybe? Where is it? It's in the... Oh my gosh, I'm stupid. It's right here. Okay. Oh, it's in Mythic Forest. Warp Gate! Stuff!
Ah.
Here it is. Here's the sketch that Hayden did of these very cool trees that are all twisty with a big portal in the center of them and a little cab for scale. Yeah. This is what the portals look like. They're just really cool, crazy, bonsai-looking trees that are all wiggly, and then there's a portal in the middle of them, which is just fucking rad. I love it.
And then I imagined, like, I don't know how well it comes across in the sketch that I did because it was just a really rough sketch, but I imagine there's, like, runes that are carved into the bark there that would, like, activate the magic.
Yes, I can see them. Yes, definitely. I like it. It's very good. So yes, this is what the portals look like, and that is how they work. Good question.
All right. Next question is, I totally lost where I was again. Oh, relating to world setting. This was submitted without a username attached to it, but that is, what era is Terra Myssia in? Examples like the Iron Age, Bronze Age, or other related questions, which are like, what kind of technology do they have? Do they have gaming systems? Do they have phones? Is it fairly modern, or is it more medieval fantasy? And we've kind of gone into it before, but we can kind of clarify some things.
Yes. So this basically... The technology levels on this world are overall post-apocalyptic. There has been an apocalypse to an extent, there was a giant war, a lot of things were destroyed, so now that people are rebuilding, it kind of depends on where you are is gonna influence the amount of technology that you have. There are a lot of places that have reverted back to basically like the Iron Age or something similar to it, because they just don't have very much technology. And there are other places where, like the Ultraviolet Underground, where they have like the technology that we have here now, where they have like, you know, probably computers, probably gaming systems, very high-tech mechanical replacements for your arms and stuff like that. Like, they've really got it honed in on the technology aspect of their world, whereas other places don't. Some towns are just, or some hubs are just, you know, little farming hubs that just do farming and don't really have much else than farms and little simply built houses and stuff like that. And like, everybody has magic, so they can make up for it a little bit with that, but not everybody has like a cell phone, not everybody, and especially not everybody has like a car. Like, cars specifically and vehicles just generally speaking, as for humans, are very rare, because there are no big corporations that build cars anymore, or if there ever was, there aren't anymore. Because of the war that happened, they would have been destroyed. So anyone who owns any sort of vehicles that would be similar to a car would be like, that person has very specific information or a very specific set of knowledge that was passed down to them by like their parents or something about how to take care of this object, how to fix this object, how to make replacement parts for this object, how to find oil out in the ruins to power this object. Like, it's a very specialized object to have, so that's why people don't really have them as much anymore. And just overall, generally, when you ask like, what technology, what age is Terra Myssia in, it's a very mixed bag, because it really depends on where you are in the world, and you know, what was left behind in the ruins and what wasn't destroyed by the wars.
Yeah, and like on that note too, for Ultraviolet Underground at least, since you know it was a hub and it is a closed hub, like all of those advancements that they would have been able to make before the wars, and like things that they could have stolen or reverse engineered or collaborated on with humans, all of that is still there because they just, you know, they went into hibernation, their hub is underground, so they just avoided all of the destruction. And then when they came back, they just popped the hub back on, and everyone is still there in the same state that it was before.
Exactly.
Whereas other locations, like, they just had to build up a new hub after the war destroyed the area.
Mm-hmm. Because that was, out of all the hubs that exist on the planet, that one was the absolute most sheltered and most safe from getting any sort of destruction from the wars. So that's why they have the most technology left over.
Yeah. And then I think we've kind of mentioned it before, you and me, Hawk, just in our brainstorming, but the idea was that the world at large was sort of built up to the level of technology that we currently have in our modern world.
Yeah.
At least for like the humans and Tainin, and
Mm-hmm.
It of course wasn't an exact reflection, because it's a different world and they have different methods of creating everything, but to an extent it was similar to what we have now before wars just destroyed everything.
Yeah.
But something that I think is like an interesting concept that's been brought up about in like cyberpunk settings is that, like, at some point specifically the cyberpunk campaign setting for the tabletop game, is that there was they destroyed the worldwide net, basically. And so the internet as it is known no longer exists, and so instead there are just like a whole bunch of private intersecting networks. So like it's probably something similar, like as far as like phone service is considered. It would just be whatever hub, if they have built up a cell tower, then they can have communication within range of that hub. It's not like worldwide communication with like global satellites or anything like that.
Yeah,
Or
exactly.
like even with internet, it would just be like a local network, not a worldwide web.
Yeah, exactly. Or like walkie-talkies would probably be a really popular way for people to talk with each other, just like short-range radio signals and stuff. Just so that like if a runner for the Junker Hub was out in like the desert updating one of the logbooks, they would be able to radio back to the hub and be like, hey, there's humans coming from this direction, watch out, and stuff like that. Yeah, I think that is a good estimation of how things are as far as like talking technology goes.
Yeah. So like I know that a lot of people want their kebs to be like live streamers or YouTubers or like whatever like that, just because it's something that we're familiar with in our world. And really, like, logistically and realistically, the only place where that could actually be something that they could do would be in an advanced hub like the Ultraviolet Underground.
Yeah.
Because otherwise they just wouldn't have access to that kind of like material, I guess. But yeah, it's not quite the same as what we're used to in our current world, but there are still some relics of those time periods.
Exactly. Well put.
All right. So the next question, this one was submitted by Sunny Ditto. How advanced is their biological and medical science? For example, if I have a cab who I said died from complications giving birth, is that realistic for their technology level or just super rare? And that does kind of tie back into what we were talking about before. But...
It's definitely going to depend on where you are in the world. So like in any place of the world where like they have a higher amount of technology, that would be much less likely to happen. Most kebs do also use magic of some sort to help treat illnesses or any sort of injuries, so that does kind of make up for it a bit. So this is something that probably wouldn't happen very often, if at all, I suppose. Like, it would be very rare for this specific situation to come up. Like, you're pretty safe on most in most hub areas or that kind of stuff. Like if you broke your arm or something, you could just go and find someone to help you like splint it, and like it would depend on where you are. So like if you broke your arm in like the mythical forest, you would have to find a druid that could heal your arm, and it's probably going to do druidy magic and splint it with sticks and fabric that they've woven themselves in order to keep it like in place. Whereas if you went into like a city or the ultraviolet underground, they would be like, well, we can just replace your arm if you want, or we can just go in there and like fix the bones back together and then stitch you up, and like, or use magic to fuse them back together. Like it would really depend on where you are and like what kind of I don't want to say what medics you have access to, but basically what healers you have access to.
And then, like, on a similar note, like, if you're not within range of a hub, and, like, say you're out in the wilderness and, like, you're giving birth or something, like, you know, there's obviously a very good chance if you don't have anyone there with any kind of medical knowledge that you could die in childbirth because, you know, you don't have the necessary means to, like, prevent against disease and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Or, you know, to deal with it properly, which, like, that's the same as what can happen in the real world if, you know, if you're stuck out in the middle of the desert and you're trying to give birth to a baby with no one around, like,
that's not gonna be that's not gonna go well.
Yeah. So like, of course it is possible to happen in areas where, you know, you don't have access to any kind of healing or like a hospital that you can get to, but generally speaking, either Kebs have knowledge of that sort of medical information, or they have access to magic that can assist with it.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so moving on to the next section here. This is relating to other species in the world. These ones are submitted without a username. They wanted to know what are some common jobs or things that, like the kind of work that the different species are known for.
Yeah, this is a good question. Alright, so Tainen basically do a lot of mining and crafting and blacksmithing. They like to do a lot of metalworking, a lot of just like ore extracting. They're very into big metal mechanical things, and that's just kind of what they do. And they make weapons, and they make big stone like castles, kind of like very rough when you look at them up close. They're not at all like clean or polished or anything. They just kind of, you know, they put things together and they're like, yeah, that's good enough, and then they do all their fun metalworking within that. Renfairs, I think we talked about this earlier, but they're really into weaving tapestries and crafting like handmade goods, especially ones that are woven. Humans do a lot of farming and probably some miscellaneous jobs, just kind of depends on where they are. Sahir do stone crafting, sculpting, and architecture. They're really skilled when it comes to carving stone, and before the wars they had a whole bunch of very complicated, detailed temples that were like, you know, that they had built up, but a lot of those were destroyed in the war. So the things that they do build now are kind of like rebuilding what they once had, but they are very into very complicated, detailed stone crafts. And then Kebs, of course, have all sorts of jobs because they're kind of the player character of the races. So they kind of, Kebs will have any sort of job.
And like, I'm sure that it's also something where like not all of that one species is only focused on doing, you know, whatever. Like,
oh yeah,
it's just kind of the, I guess the stereotype, or like a
generalization.
A generalization, yeah. Sorry, what were you trying to say, T?
Oh, sorry, I was gonna say like the things they put values on culturally. So like the Tainin really value metallurgy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Cultural thing in addition to.
Yeah.
Like the common themes in fantasy where like dwarves are always about mining and blacksmithing, or elves are always about like
Fine
you know.
dwarvish craft. Straight from
but, like,
Asimar.
that sort of thing where it's just like, yeah, that is mostly what they're known for, because that is where most of their skilled artisans end up working.
Mhm.
But of course they can also have other jobs like a fisher or a baker, because those things are also needed in their society.
Yeah. They would definitely need those things. They cannot just eat swords for breakfast and be
Swords.
and be okay with that. Go
I mean,
eat a
Tainen aren't
sword.
lizards, they're kind of like dragons, so maybe they just eat gold. Who knows?
Ah! Can you imagine? That would be terrible.
He's very fucking funny.
The Tainen
We
keep
mine
coming
all day
and
so that we can get food.
the Tainen just keep on raiding like people's farms and stealing all of their sheep. Like, hey, the Tainen keep stealing all of our sheep. The Tainen keep burning down our buildings. The Tainen stole all of our treasure. You go there, hey, cut it out!
No wonder they're always fighting with people.
Yeah, goodness. Alright,
Alright, the next question is, how long do the other species live for?
Alright, so Tainen are big lizard people, so I've thought of them as living a bit longer than humans, but not nearly as long as Kebs because they're non-magical. Sahir live closer to humans, but maybe slightly longer, depending on how much magic they do have. And then I never wrote down how long I never wrote down how long Wrens live for, so that's completely up in the air. And the answer that I wrote down was, who knows? They're aliens, I don't know. But they probably have lifespans that are closer to Keb lifespans, so probably a bit more long-lived than most things. Do you want to go into the next question?
Yeah. Next question is... I think this is coming up to the end of our questions here.
Oh, yeah.
Next question is, are Tainen hostile or territorial by default?
They are. Generally, they do not like other people coming onto their land. They're definitely considered to be more territorial. Like, if you end up on their island and they find you, you better have a good reason for being there. And it better be a reason that they approve of. So like, oh, I'm here to trade some goods with you. Like, that better be your reason. It better not be just, oh, my ship crashed here, because they'll be like, okay, you better get the fuck out of here. You better be leaving then, because go away, pretty much. But yeah, they are generally very territorial, and I wouldn't say hostile exactly by default, but they like things to be done their way. Which way is town? Them, it's back the way you came. Exactly. Yeah, they do not like other people coming in and messing around with their stuff. They're pretty protective of it. And then do we want to do the final question?
We'll do the final question, and then we'll probably take a couple questions from chat if anyone else has anything to ask.
Yeah.
And then we'll just end it after that.
Sounds good.
So, the next question, I'm gonna have to kind of like rephrase it. This one was submitted by Alari. The general idea of the question is the group eventually going to progress into more of a story progressing ARPG? And if we are going to have more story progression, does that mean that we will have new NPC characters? Will there be any human NPCs? things like that.
Okay. We are planning on going in a more story-driven direction because we would like to have more reason for people to like interact with prompts and stuff like that and actually have like current events going on because we feel like that'd be a lot of fun. There will be more NPCs, especially story-related ones. We do have a lot of NPCs with all of the leaders that we've added recently, so we're going to have to figure out how they're going to interact with the story and what roles they're going to play in it. But there will be, I'm sure there will be more NPCs as we find places that we need to add them, but we will be pushing it to be a more story-driven game, pretty much.
We do have some stuff planned for the future that we will not talk about in a general
We have secrets.
general access, I guess, but
We have secrets
yeah,
that
we've
are...
got some stuff planned. We have some story ideas already that we want to work on. But
Mhm.
yeah, we hope to get more into that soon,
Yes.
or at the very least in the near future.
Yes.
And the next question was, is the Mythic Forest considered to be the capital compared to other cabs or other hubs?
Yes, it is definitely considered to be the capital. Like, oh, I hope you guys cannot hear the gardener outside, but it is definitely considered to be the capital. That was the original place where everything collapsed, where they all ended up. So that is kind of seen as like the Keb homeland of where they all originated from. So yes, that is their capital.
All right. So that does it for the questions that we were submitted from the form. Hope everyone enjoyed getting some info dump today.
Yeah.
If there are any questions that you guys have that you didn't get a chance to submit, or anything else that you thought of while we were streaming, we'll go ahead and take some questions now. So go ahead and send them in, and I'll bring them up with Hawk, and we'll just start discussing.
Yeah.
Also, I know that Sahara had some questions about shifters emblems.
Yes. Also, before we jump into questions, I will be right back.
Okay.
It's Visra.
Just a
I
minute.
remember about a shifter emblem.
I don't know if Visra's still here.
That's fair. I'm scrolling back to see if there's any we were saving.
Ask away.
Oh no. Do one at a time, but not too fast so it doesn't prevent you from sending.
Yeah.
Oh no. Do you want to DM me and I can just say what it was?
Okay, I'm back. Do we have any questions from the chat?
We've got one in the chat right now. Sarah was having a hard time sending their questions through because Twitch was cutting things off. So they're gonna DM T.
Okay.
But Kitty Fiend asks, I was wondering while I was doing the stargazing prompt, is the moon and sun like our planetary ones?
Yes, I would say. They are indeed similar. It might be fun later to figure out what the moon looks like and add some like specific markings to it just because it's not Earth. And that would be kind of fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, as a
You also have to figure out different like constellations and stuff.
Yes, oh my gosh, that's a good question. Yeah, we do need to figure out constellations. But yeah, as a general, like, generally, yeah, they look the same.
Larry has a question. I think I had a question where the royal family fits in, relating to Akike.
So, whew, I really need to redo his backstory because, like, it's a whole mess of confusion. Like, I would say his family was probably from before the war happened, like way, way before the war happened. It might have even been back, like, before the collapse happened, from when his family was all doing their thing, 'cause there probably were, even in the in their magical world beforehand, on the magical plane, there probably were desert areas, like different biomes and stuff. So he was probably a prince from a long time ago, way before any of this happened, and yeah, it was just a long time ago. And so he's been asleep for a much longer time than most other people, and he woke up to a lot of things being very different. So they don't really do...
I got Sahara's.
Oh, okay.
Many questions. It was... No wonder Twitch said, no thank you. So, number 1, do kid kebs go to school? Are they taught by hub mentors, or is it every kid for themselves and their parents gotta teach them the ropes?
Kebs do go to school. They have little Keb schools for little baby Kebs. And they do also have just, like, I would say they go to Keb school where they learn how to do things. And then also, generally when there's just children Kebs in hubs, they're kind of raised... I don't want to say they're raised by everybody, but they're definitely taught how to do things by everybody. So, if, like, for say, you were a Keb and you were sitting here working on something, like say you were a fisher Keb and you were fiddling around with your bait and, like, figuring out and, like, sorting out how you're gonna fish. If a child Keb ran up to you and was like, "What are you doing?" you would usually turn to them and be like, "Oh, I'm fishing. Do you want me to show you how to do that?" And then they would, like, it's very encouraged for them to learn how to do skills and stuff. So older Kebs are very like, open to teaching younger Kebs, and younger Kebs are usually very interested in learning what other older Kebs are doing. So, like, everybody kind of teaches children how to do things, and they do also go to school to learn, like, more general things, like, I guess, like, math and and reading and art and stuff like that.
So it's very communal is what I'm getting.
Yeah, there's a lot of community, like, people really work together a lot.
Yeah, there's definitely, and it's something that is probably what creates some of the clash of, like, culture ideas. Because I know that there's been people who asked before, like, you know, why certain characteristics are not allowed when creating characters, and that kind of thing. And really, there is just such a different culture relating to Kebs than humans. Like, in our real world, like, their culture is so drastically different, where people are so much more accepting and communal and, like, ready to just help each other.
Yeah.
That, like, certain characteristics, just, if it doesn't mesh with the community, then they aren't really accepted by the community.
Yeah.
And, like, that's why we have those rules in place. And so, like, when it comes to teaching others, like, there is definitely that sense of community of, like, oh, you are also another Keb and you need to learn how to do Keb things, and we need to make sure that, you know, our knowledge continues to be passed on. And so that just kind of gets around to everyone.
Yeah.
So to put it in a, I'm gonna make use of my fancy degree here for a second. In, like, a way when you consider cultural metrics, there's collectivism and individualism. this would rank very, very high on the collectivism, where the entire community is what's most important versus the self.
Yeah, definitely.
It's very the needs of the many over the needs of the few.
And like there are definitely Kebs out there who like do things to benefit for themselves. Like, you know, Kebs will still have jobs of like, I am a fisherman Keb, so therefore I sell fish. But they know that like I sell fish because, and I'm a fisherman because, you know, people need fish, and I'm not going to overcharge for the fish because people need fish, and if I charge too much, then people can't have fish. And so they'll charge or trade for acceptable amounts because they need things too. And just everyone just kind of works together, and no one's trying to like screw each other over, kind of, and they just like they want their community to do well. They want everybody that they're related to do well, so they go out of their way to do kind things to make sure that things are going well. And that's why, like, if a Keb is in a hub and they're going out of their way to sabotage people and hurt people, like the community itself is just gonna be like, yeah, you're a problem. You're literally just making things hard on everybody, so you're not really welcome here anymore. Go somewhere else. Someone else can deal with you, but we aren't going to. If that makes any sense.
I think it does.
The next question is, are there any predators on this planet, or have the current sentient beings permanently snagged their spot at the top of the food chain?
There are predators, and some of them are in the pet shop even. Oh my god, there are definitely predators. Holy shit, you gotta be careful. So like, astrals are probably one of the biggest, scariest predators that there are. I would say, am I still streaming? Yeah, I'm still streaming. I pressed a button and something changed on my screen, but I didn't know what it was. Anyway, yeah, astrals are the biggest, scariest predator that I currently have on that world. You do not tame wild astrals. That's just not something that people usually do, because that's like the equivalent of trying to tame like a lion or like a Tyrannosaurus Rex or something. Like, it's a big animal that would much rather eat you than listen to you. So, like, usually what people do for taming astrals is they steal eggs and then they raise them from babies, and then they breed astrals like out of the wild so that they're very constantly around Kebs and like familiarized with them and listen to them and see them as like not parental figures, but like do get imprinted on them to respect them at least. But yeah, you wouldn't want to mess with a wild astral. It will eat you. It will not hesitate to make you dinner. Like, it will eat you. The wild variants of lizards would probably try to eat you just because they're, at least some of them, probably not the aquatic ones because those guys eat fish, but like the really big, the bigger ones would definitely, you know, they might eat you. Like, and also just wild lizards in general, because they're omnivores. They, like, if you're weak enough and they're hungry enough, they'll see you as a meal. I haven't gone like too crazy into other creatures that are big carnivores that live on the world, but yeah, you do got to be careful about those things because they exist and they will not hesitate.
On that topic, I still think it would be a really cool idea to do a creature design contest to try and populate the world with some more creatures.
Yeah, that'd be really cool. Yeah, like the alpine lizards, they'll eat you. That's like a polar bear, or like a grizzly bear. Like, don't mess with that. It's big and it will eat you. Do we have any more questions from Sahara thing? I know there's
a lot more.
Okay.
Alari also asked, are there any negative aspects to Kebanzu culture?
That's a good question.
I'm sure there are some. Like, there's bound to be negative things in like all cultures.
Yeah.
And like, I know that it is definitely a different culture than ours that we're used to, so it's something that we'll probably have to think more on to try and figure that out. But
I would say off the top of my head, one that I can think of would be their secretism. Like they're very isolated and insular, and they're not very open to others, and that in itself is pretty negative. Because
Yeah.
that's how
That's true.
cultures grow and flourish.
And they're probably also
Yeah,
pretty
they-
just like stressed out about humans and stuff, and being near humans is probably really anxiety inducing for any list of reasons.
Like, there's, I guess, mildly xenophobic, like, just to the extent of, like, they know that the other races were after them for a time before they went into hibernation, because they were trying to get, like, the enchanted stones, and they were trying to get magic from them, so, like, they have a reason to be, like, afraid of these other societies and, like, to hide from them. It's not necessarily a thing of like they don't respect them as a culture or they don't like them, just that they have to keep their guard up a lot when it comes to other societies.
Yeah.
So like there's definitely, yeah, that's a good point, T, is that them having to keep secret is kind of its own like biggest downfall. And like I know that there is part of the lore where they do often enjoy stealing things from the other cultures, just because they're tricksy. So that's also a negative aspect.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that there's probably like to that or to some degree along those lines is that they probably also see things from the other societies and from their cultures that they just kind of incorporate into their own like mild cultural appropriation, just because they're like, oh, what are these shiny things that the humans have? I like them, so I want to have them, without necessarily knowing if it's culturally relevant or not.
Yeah.
But it's the issues that come up with being a race that is trying to hide in plain sight and that is very secretive is that you don't quite get to do those cross-cultural
Learning.
intermingling.
Yeah, exactly. Trying to think.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, another one from the chat was, do the other races know there's still Kebs around? Which
humans
in the Weebly, so
Sahir do know that Kebs are still around because they're like when the whole war happened and all of that, when humans and Tainen were trying to steal magic from the Kebs, Sahir were basically like, no, we can see how this would be bad. We're gonna try and help you guys because that sucks. And so they tried to help them. So they're basically like allied with Kebs. So they do still know that Kebs are around and they do still readily interact with them. And that's why one of the portals is in the Skystone Expanse, because that's basically the capital or the homeland of Sahir. Like that's where they mainly live now, because all of their temples, or most of their temples, got destroyed. So Kebs do like to have pretty open contact with them, so that's why they have a portal there and stuff.
Okay. Oh, we got another one. What are Keb houses like?
It can be like any sort of house, anything. There's so much variety. A Keb house can be a hollowed out tree. A Keb house with like a little door in it. A Keb house could be a cute little chateau on the side of a hill. I don't know what a chateau is, but I think it's like a cute house. A Keb house can be a barn with some horses that live in it, and also a little house next to that because they're a farmer. It's basically any way that you want a Keb to live. Like they can live in tree houses. They make homes out of anything. Like it really, you can really go any direction with it. Dig a hole and live in it. Yeah, pretty much.
No, that's also kind of similar to what we were talking about like taking things from other societies. Is that like before the wars happened, before things got like really bad with relations with the other races. I'm sure there was probably a lot of cross-cultural like architecture of things where like they got inspiration from the way that humans built their cities, or they got inspirations from the way that Tanans built their cities, and that's what they used to create certain hubs. Like I feel probably Ultraviolet Underground would have been something similar to what Tanans would build, just because it is like harsh angles. It's built underground. It's very what's the word I'm looking for? Industrial, I guess.
Yeah.
As opposed to like Sunset City, which is built up around human ruins, so it has a very human aesthetic to it, of like a portside town with a bunch of like brightly colored stucco walls and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely depends.
Follow-up, could you have a druid grow a home, like a tree, like specifically have a druid grow a tree for you to live inside of it?
Oh yeah, if you're a high enough level in growing plants, or like plant controlling, plant crafting, you could definitely grow a home out of trees where like the walls and stuff were just made of tree and like all wove together to create a building. You could definitely do that.
I'm gonna grab another.
Alari wants... Oh, sorry. Alari's asked this in chat a couple times, so just wanted to get that one out there. Do Lightsong and Oil Slick have tea parties / get-togethers? And do Kebs have any Kebs-specific holidays?
So Lightsong and Oil Slick definitely would have tea parties or get-togethers. They would probably visit each other at one of their hubs, or maybe even a place in between that they both enjoy going to. But usually it would be one of them would just show up at the other one's hub and be like, hey, I want to hang out now. And then the other one would be like, cool, all right, let's do that. And then they would just, make time to do so, because they're, to each other, they're very similar, and they can relate to each other a lot with their existence and what brought them to be, so they probably do have a very special bond over that. But yeah, they would definitely have get-togethers and tea parties and visit each other to discuss things and whatnot. And then specific holidays. Well, we do have the monthly things, which I will say, like, the seasonal events are probably pretty similar to their holidays. Like, it's when they celebrate stuff. So I would definitely say, like, any seasonal events that we have going on, like the winter event, the fall event, the spring event, and the summer event, are kind of how their holidays work. Like, that's when they celebrate the changing of the seasons, and I'm sure they also have a holiday for when the realms collapsed and they were now in a different world. So they probably have like a day of remembrance for that of some sort. But I haven't decided on like a specific date for that. But I should go over a calendar and like pick out days and stuff for those things, because I feel like that would be a good thing to make just for funsies.
Also have to determine if they use real world calendar names and day names.
Good question. I would say probably just to simplify things, because I would love for it to have like a real world equivalent. Are Yule and Sam related?
Yeah.
Aren't they brother and sister?
Yeah.
Yeah. They are related. It was on purpose.
But yeah, like Yule being named after the holiday Yule, specifically for that. Like a lot of, basically all of the seasonal ideas that we had were that they celebrate the changing of the season. So like it's around either like an equinox or what's the other one that I'm looking for? Solstice.
Yeah.
So that's where most of like the seasonal holidays take place. But I'm sure they have a few other sprinkled around, like the Festival of Love that would happen in February.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Mm-hmm.
A time when the Vikings get together and punch each other.
Yeah.
Nice. They punch each other out of love.
Yes.
I had another Sahara
Let's,
question as well.
yeah, let's go to another Sahara one.
We know there are some places that have been completely wrecked by the war, but how are they recuperating? Are there any canon cultures, locations, species that have been completely wiped out?
Let's see. A lot of the human and Tanan and Sahir towns and things have been destroyed. Like, Sahir almost went extinct from the wars because they were kind of an unlucky bystander in the whole thing. Because the main thing was humans and Tanans upset with each other over a variety of reasons and also trying to steal magic from Kebs. So they were fighting with each other and also going after Kebs and trying to sort that whole thing out, but mostly fighting with each other about like trading and who was going to get what and this, that, and the other thing, and just like getting upset with each other. And I think me and Hayden have like talked about the very specifics of the wars and stuff and like who killed who and why they were all on about it for so long. But they did almost completely destroy all Sahir existence. Like they got really close to just not being a thing anymore because they were just in the warpath of these two races that were unhappy with each other. So they almost got extinct. They didn't though. They are rebuilding. They're working on it. They used to have a lot of really beautiful temples just across the landscape, and most of those got completely destroyed, or at least mostly destroyed, to a point where they can't be fixed anymore just because they're just so far gone. So they were probably like the most affected by the war, I would say. And then of course humans and Tanans did a really good job of silencing each other on either side to a pretty large extent. Like a lot of human towns and cities were leveled, a lot of Tanan strongholds were destroyed. Just, you know, they destroyed a lot of things, so they had a rough time with it all.
Yeah, at one point, the war between the humans and Tanan just became a mutually assured destruction, where like it was basically the equivalent of everyone just launched nukes at each other, and whatever was left afterwards is just all that's left.
And so since then, they have been like, okay, our leaders have died in the war. Both leaders who were the ones that were like fueling it were killed when the war ended, pretty much. So everybody that's left over is kind of like, okay, we don't exactly like each other, but it's definitely more beneficial to work together to an extent than it is to like constantly be at war with each other and trying to kill each other. So, yeah. Alright, we had a question from Juniper. What are Oil Slick's and Light Song's personalities like? Hayden, have we talked about this before?
Yeah, we've kind of discussed before that it's kind of like almost a yin and yang situation of like we've got the really pensive, stoic, statuesque,
Light Song?
sort of just like, yeah, for Light Song just being this sort of cemented, grounded type of person. And then Oil Slick is the opposite of that, being very flighty, lighthearted, and almost hedonistic, just kind of like party all the time.
Yeah. Flirty. Very, what's the word when you have high charisma? Very charismatic.
Yeah. Mischievous.
Yeah. They're very different, but they get along really well. They really enjoy each other's company.
Yeah, definitely a two sides of the same coin type of situation where they're just like, you know, they have so many similarities to each other because they did come about from the same source, but they go about things in different ways.
Yeah. Alright, there's another one I saw come up. How much of Strands is in ruins? Are there any parts of the city that have been totally rebuilt? A lot is in ruins, to answer that question shortly. Hold on, let me bring this over here. So, the main part that has been rebuilt to an extent is Central Strand. That's probably the most rebuilt city out of all of them. It's still pretty dang ruined. Like, it has a lot of broken buildings that are just partially fixed, and parts of the buildings are just have not been touched because it was too like treacherous to fix. So they were just like, okay, we'll fix this many levels and people can live in here, but we're not fixing any higher up than that because those are too destroyed. We're gonna leave those alone and just say don't go up there. Eastern Strand is completely different in how it works, in that it's a lot of like farmland, and since we've gotten the leader who's there, it's very inspired by, like, what is it? The East, like China, kind of?
Oh yeah, it was like the Chinese farmlands.
Yeah, it's very inspired by those kind of farmlands, so a lot of it was once ruined, but it has now turned into a lot of farmland that the humans farm. So that's kind of what they're doing there. And then Northern Strand, I don't remember who lives there. Let me check. Where's the
that's where the there's the one forest.
Yeah.
Camp, and then there's the Shinori Shrine.
Yes, I'm looking for number 20. If that's even the right one. I think that's the right one. Yeah, 20 is the one that I'm looking for. Let me check the hub leaders. Oh yeah, so 20 is a lot of forest, not many people live there. It's probably also has some ruins, but a lot of forest has reclaimed it there, and that's kind of just okay. It's just kind of a lot of overgrown forest now, and people don't really live there as much. But yeah, a lot of the actual Strand area got pretty destroyed. Okay.
Let's go ahead and go on to another one of the questions that Sahara sent.
Yeah.
Okay, I think this is the last one. Okay. What are shifter emblems made of? And then there's actually a couple follow-ups, so let's start with that one.
Okay, shifter's emblems are mainly made out of enchanted stones and like some magic stuff. Like, whenever I think about them, I think of it as like an enchanted stone that's inside of like a little golden capsule of some sort, and it just holds it holds magic within it that just it's constantly putting off magic, and it has been imbued with an enchantment that allows someone who has it to turn into a Keb, basically, and like gives them the same abilities as a Keb would have. So it's kind of just like a little trinket that gives you powers, and you really have to hold on to it, because if you lose it, then you don't have those powers anymore, and you really don't want that to fall into anybody else's hands, and that's why it's they aren't given out very often. They're only given out to very trusted people.
Okay, the next one in that same line is, what qualifications does one need to meet before they can get a shifter emblem in lore?
Basically, you have to be really trusted by a Keb, like super duper trusted. It doesn't really matter what race you are. Sahir overall are like definitely more openly trusted by Kebs, so it is it's more common for a Sahir to have a shifter's emblem than it would be for like a human or a Tainen to have one. But humans and Tainens can technically also have them if they are that invested in Kebanzu culture and that supportive of it. They probably wouldn't go back much to human civilization. They'd like basically you kind of like integrate into Keb society at that point. But you would basically just have to be like very, very trusted by an individual Keb to a point where like they know that you aren't going to backstab them or betray them or anything like that. Like you would really have to prove yourself in some way that you can be trusted by them.
Is that something that you think would be like brought up with leaders, like a hub leader where that Keb like lives out of, or any kind of like elders within the Keb community in order to get that approved?
Yeah, it would probably be brought up with for, like, you'd probably go to your leader and be like, hey, I want this person to join our hub. They are not a Keb, but I trust them, and this is my reasoning for it. And they would be like, okay, those are good reasons. I'm going to discuss it with them now, because, like, they would have to be aware of Kebs already, and, like, if they are so aware of it, then that's already, like, a pretty big thing. So they would probably discuss with them and be like, this is the weight of the thing that we're giving you. You need to know that if anything happens to this, you're going to be the one that pays for it. So don't you let this fall into the wrong hands, and we'll know where it came from if it ends up anywhere else. So they probably would discuss it with the leaders, though, just to make sure everything was okay and they knew the gravity of the situation.
If anything was to happen, would the punishment fall onto the one who was given the Shifter's emblem as well as the one who gifted it to them originally?
Probably. It would probably be both of them that would get in trouble for it, because it was a joint effort. And it would also probably... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry, I was going to say that does kind of answer the follow-up, but I'm going to adjust the question. If someone were to find a Shifter's emblem, would they inherently, like, would the emblem impart any knowledge onto them that they didn't previously have? Like, if they didn't know that Kebs were back, would they now know, or would it just be a really interesting trinket that they had?
It probably wouldn't impart any powers on them or any knowledge about Kebs. Like, I guess it would kind of depend on how much they know of the previous world before the wars. Like, the main place where information is kept is the Seaside Library, where, at least where Kebs keep their information, but a lot of the other races, like humans and Tainen, don't have a lot of information left over from before the war, just because so many things were destroyed. But if they had somehow found some sort of relic or some sort of, like, journal of information that might have suggested that Kebs existed. Because right now, the humans and Tainen mainly see Kebs as, like, that's a mythical creature. That's like a unicorn to us. That's not... Or, like, how we see dragons. Like, that's not a real thing. That's like Bigfoot. It's a cryptid. Like, things that can shapeshift, people that came from another realm that can shapeshift, that's a joke. People using magic, that's a joke. No, that's not real. That's just how people explained things in ye olden times and they didn't understand it. Like, that can't actually exist. So, if someone knew about, like, just the history of it and were to find a Shifter's emblem, they might have an inkling of, like, this is a strange little trinket that I found, but they wouldn't automatically be able to use it to shapeshift or anything like that. Because I would imagine Shifter's emblems would probably be something that, like, are attuned to an individual so that they don't fall into the wrong hands. But it still wouldn't be good for someone to get a Shifter's emblem that it was not meant for them, because that's still enchanted stones within that, and they can still potentially use that to do magic things. So, yeah, it's kind of a finicky thing, but it would definitely depend on, like, what that individual's knowledge is of the past and all that.
All right, that sounds good. That makes sense.
Cool. I think
that was the last question from the ones that Sarah submitted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there was some in the chat.
There were a few in the chat.
When the deities were created, were they just like, oh, we exist now? The world is collapsing. Was there any self-examination there?
That is kind of what happened. They were just sort of like, oh, we're here now, I guess. Like, I would imagine that they would have a little bit of knowledge of what was going on because they were the energy from the world and they might have inherited some of its knowledge when they were turned into individuals. But they probably would have been kind of surprised of, like, oh, we weren't really sentient before, and now we are. well, this is surprising, I guess. I wasn't thinking before. I just sort of knew what was happening, but now I'm here now, I guess? Okay, cool. Like, that probably would have been pretty shocking for them. Like, the whole situation.
Yeah. Kitty Fiend wants to know, can Kebs wear any type of human clothing, such as suits, tuxedos?
Yes, definitely. Go for it. They are very open to wearing clothing and can wear any sort of clothing that you want. It is... Go wild. Have fun with it.
Rue asks, how do they make sure that shifters emblems aren't being sold illegally? That kind of goes back to what I was mentioning about, like they would need to bring it up with a hub leader or some other kind of like leader of the community where this is something that is being given to the individual. They have to talk to that individual who is being given the shifter's emblem to like allow it for that person specifically.
Yeah. They would probably also, like... Shifter's emblems can't just be made by anyone. You'd probably need a pretty high-level enchanter in order to make one or craft it, which they would probably require, like, I'm going to need to see the leader of the hub before I make this thing for you and make sure that it's going to the right person and applying it to the right person. And, like, I suppose there definitely could be, like, bad Kebs that learn how to do it and try to make Shifter's emblems secretly. But if they were ever found out, that would be a big problem. So, I don't know if they would, like, actively go out of their way to try and do that kind of thing. Like, it just... And I also suppose that, like, the people who know how to make Shifter's emblems would only teach people how to make them that they really trusted to do so. So it would really be, like, a pretty tricky situation if someone were to try... Like, it would be hard to get into the position of, I know how to make Shifter's emblems, and I'm going to use it for evil. Like, that would be a very hard situation to get yourself into in the first place.
You'd need to be playing some, like, 12D chess to get yourself there.
Yeah, exactly. You'd have to be really, really, really wiggling around. Curse
of course,
time.
anyone who does get caught for that, yeah, curse time.
Yeah,
Like,
basically.
they would just be exiled from the hubs, or there would be some kind of curse applied to, you know, make sure that they can't do that anymore.
Yeah. Would be not fun for them. Oh no.
All right, so I think we should probably call it here because this actually went a lot longer than either of us expected. We were
Yeah.
thinking it would maybe be done in like an hour, maybe 2 hours, and it's been 3 hours now.
Mhm.
So I think that is a pretty good wrap up on this.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much for coming to the stream and asking us questions so that we can sit here and talk about it, because it's fun and neat, and we need to brainstorm this stuff because there's a whole world going on, and sometimes we don't even think about these questions that are being asked, and it's really nice to get them from you guys. So thank you so much for coming. Thank you for hanging out in the stream, and if you're watching this later, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. And thank you so much, T and Fen and Hayden and Starry, for hanging out as well.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah. Alrighty. See you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.